Good afternoon, everyone. I am Dan Garodnick, Chair of the City Planning Commission and Director of the Department of City Planning. Welcome to today's review session of the Commission. Today's date is April 21st. We're joined by Commissioners Benjamin, Cerullo, Dweck, Kermani, Mann, Marin, Osorio, and Rampersad. Thank you all. Before we get to today's agenda, I'd just like to take a moment to highlight some news related to the Department of City Planning. First of all, I'm very glad to announce that the City Planning website has undergone a complete overhaul with a new layout that is more streamlined, with easier access to many great resources, including zoning tools, tons of data sets. This fantastic revamp was a massive undertaking by our web team with support from the comm shop, and I just want to thank all of them for their hard work. I see a few people nodding who've already been on the website already, and so we know who you are, so thank you for that, and congrats. And if you haven't seen it yet, you can explore the new and improved website for yourself at nyc.gov/planning. That's not the only major web update from City Planning. We've also upgraded our zoning application portal, which provides the public with easy access to land use applications, to add a new feature that lets New Yorkers get email alerts whenever a project in their community is filed or reaches a new milestone. It's another example of how Department of City Planning is continuously prioritizing transparency and boosting access to data. We're very proud of these improvements. So check it out for yourself at zap.planning.nyc.gov. Earlier this month, I was happy to join the Metropolitan Transportation Authority for the opening of a new elevator at Queensboro Plaza, making the station ADA accessible. The reason I mention it here is because this improvement was completed through zoning for accessibility, a provision crafted by City Planning, which gives developers more density in exchange for public transit accessibility enhancements. It's a true win-win, bettering our public realm and transit system and enabling additional much-needed housing, all at no cost to the public. So let's get to today's agenda. We'll begin with the One LIC Neighborhood Plan, an ambitious initiative to bring new homes, jobs, and infrastructure investments to Long Island City, Queens. Long Island City is one of New York City's most dynamic communities. While parts of the neighborhood have experienced remarkable residential growth over the last 20 years, other parts remain frozen in time by outdated zoning that restricts new housing and business growth. And even where housing is allowed, there are no requirements for affordability. With its central location, access to multiple subway and bus lines, strong local economy, and great amenities, Long Island City is exactly the kind of place where the city should be adding more housing and jobs, and that is what this holistic plan allows us to do. Through these proposed zoning changes, which you will hear about today, we will set the stage for around 14,700 new homes, including 4,000 permanently income-restricted affordable homes through mandatory inclusionary housing across a 54-block area. In addition, the Department of Housing Preservation and Development has committed to building another 320 income-restricted homes on a city-owned site. In total, this would be the most amount of housing generated by a neighborhood-specific rezoning in at least 25 years, and very likely the most since the creation of the modern zoning resolution in 1961. Truly a big milestone in our ongoing work to tackle New York City's housing crisis. Long Island City has long been an economic hub, and One LIC will help it stay that way. This plan will significantly boost commercial and manufacturing capacity in the industrial sub-area, where many of the neighborhood's jobs are already located. By adding over 3.5 million square feet of new commercial and industrial uses, we will facilitate around 14,400 more jobs, creating a true live-work community where New Yorkers can find opportunity close to home. While jobs and homes are central pieces of our planning work, it's the infrastructure and amenities that help make a series of blocks feel like a neighborhood. That's why the plan will deliver a continuous, resilient, public waterfront along the East River that will connect Gantry Plaza State Park with Queensbridge Park, significantly boosting open space in this area. Part of that green stretch will be a transformed Annabelle Basin, that provides a considerable amount of green space, improved flood resiliency, and easy public access to the water. The plan also includes incentives for buildings that create plazas, squares, or other open space amenities for the public. To further support Long Island City residents and workers, the New York City Economic Development Corporation is pursuing a request for information for 4436 Vernon Boulevard to inform future activation of this city-owned site for uses that serve the community. This could include a variety of commercial, cultural, industrial, retail, and community-oriented purposes. The One LIC neighborhood plan incorporates the priorities of residents and stakeholders that worked with the Department of City Planning and Councilmember Julie Wan throughout an 18-month engagement process that included 21 public meetings and around 1,800 participants. The product of a thorough and thoughtful approach, the plan strikes the right balance to deliver much-needed new homes, require income-restricted homes, and boost job opportunities to help this neighborhood thrive far into the future. With these changes, more New Yorkers of all income levels will be able to call this neighborhood home, enjoy a morning coffee next to the East River at a waterfront green space, and then walk a few blocks to their job. That's the vision that we have for Long Island City, a more active, equitable, vibrant, and welcoming community. I'd like to express my deepest thanks to Councilmember Julie Wan for her leadership and partnership on this momentous initiative over the past year and a half. I'd also like to shout out Borough President Donovan Richards, our agency partners, and the many community stakeholders that have been involved through this process, including the New York City Housing Authority, Queensbridge Houses Tenant Associations, the Long Island City Partnership, Community Boards 1 and 2, Queens Public Library, Jacob Riis Community Center, Renewable Ravenswood, and Hunters Point Park Conservancy, and every New Yorker, and there were a lot of them, who attended a public meeting, submitted a comment, or answered our survey. Your contributions have really helped to shape this proposal. Finally, I'd like to thank everyone at the Department of City Planning who helped us get to this point, including Council's Office, Economic Development and Regional Planning, Environmental Assessment and Review Division, Housing, Strategic Planning, Technical Review, Transportation, Urban Design, Zoning, Communications, Intergovernmental Affairs, and there's more. Community Planning and Civic Engagement, and the Queens Borough Office, especially Queens Director Lynn Zhang, Deputy Director Kathy Coe, and the all-star planners leading this project: Ryan Jacobson, Derek Jasmine, Dalton Walker, Fageli Leichner, Katie Crawford, Colin Ryan, and Hye-Kyung Yang. You guys are amazing. Thank you. We will look forward to hearing from you in a few minutes. And we're next going to head to Brooklyn to learn more about the Broadway Junction Transit Police Department relocation and plaza project in East New York. This work includes an extension of Callahan Kelly Plaza, the construction of the new 5,000 square foot Van Sinderen Plaza, and a new facility for the NYPD Transit Bureau, enough space for nearly 190 staff members. These community amenities will be close to the Broadway Junction Transit Hub, which includes connections to the AC, J, L, and Z subway lines, the Long Island Railroad, and many buses. The land use actions will also help the city fulfill commitments from the East New York Neighborhood Plan. Staying in Brooklyn, we'll head to 58 Nixon Court. In Gravesend, this mixed-use development would include nearly 20 homes, around a third income-restricted affordable, as well as ground floor retail. Moving nearby to Bay Ridge, we will learn about 464 Ovington Avenue, a proposed residential building that would include 40 homes, 10 of them income-restricted affordable. The site would be within walking distance of the Bay Ridge Avenue R train stop, the B9, B63, and B64 bus lines, and Leif Erikson Park. Next, we'll learn about a proposal for 74 Bogart Street in East Williamsburg. At this industrial site, the applicant is looking to build a 240,000 square foot fine arts storage facility that's designed to offer more specialized care than typical self-storage buildings. Notably, for the benefit of the commission and the public, this is the first private application to use one of the new zoning districts that we created through City of Yes for economic opportunity, in this case, M14A. Look forward to many more to come. From there, we're going to hear details about a 100% affordable proposal in Kingsbridge, in the Bronx. 5602 to 5604 Broadway would offer approximately 225 income-restricted homes, of which nearly 60 would be permanently income-restricted affordable. Located near the 1 train at 231st Street, the building would also include a green roof. Also before us today is a special permit renewal for 534 South Avenue in Arlington, Staten Island. This special permit would help facilitate the construction of a 5-building retail complex. We'll then go over some design and concourse changes to an existing through-block arcade at 1211 Avenue of the Americas in Midtown Manhattan. These changes would add movable chairs and tables, platform seating, plantings, decorative lighting, and more, resulting in a more welcoming, privately owned public space. The site is close to Rockefeller Center, Radio City Music Hall, and St. Patrick's Cathedral, as well as the 47th to 50th Street Rockefeller Center and 49th Street subway stations. Next, and believe it or not, we're still going here, we'll continue our conversation about a general project plan for the 5 Times Square office to residential conversion. This large building is located at 592 7th Avenue in the heart of one of New York City's most famous attractions, and would offer 1,250 new homes, 25% income restricted affordable permanently. We'll then review modifications made by the City Council for the Brownsville Neighborhood Construction Program, a proposal from the Department of Housing Preservation and Development. These 3 100% income-restricted affordable buildings would bring a total of 60 homes to 425 Mother Gaston Boulevard, 546 Thomas S. Boylan Street, and 1733 St. Mark's Avenue. The Commission will also hold a post-hearing follow-up discussion on the Coney development, a 1.3 million square foot entertainment complex at Coney Island that would include a gaming facility, hotel, convention center, food hall, retail space, and more. Busy afternoon before us. I just ask your indulgence. We may make slight changes to the agenda today based on timing, order, and need to actually accomplish certain of these items today. So bear with us. But with that, Madam Secretary, I'm going to turn to you, and let's get this started.
Good afternoon, and welcome to City Planning Commission Review Session for Monday, April 21st, 2025. The time is 1:13 p.m., and a quorum is present. The first item on our agenda is a certification of a zoning map and zoning text amendments, UDAP designation, project approval, dispositions of city-owned properties, acquisitions and site selections, and a city map amendment in Queens Community Districts 1 and 2. Our presenters are the Queens Director, Lin Zhang, and Hye-Kyung Yang.
All right, welcome.
There we go. All right. Thank you. Good to see everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you. All right. Good afternoon, Chair Grodnick and Commissioners. I am Lin Zhang, Director of Queens City Planning. A month ago, we presented the city's proposed goals for Jamaica, Queens. Today, we'll be shifting our attention to the western portion of the borough, as I'm excited to kick off the Long Island City Neighborhood Plan. I'm joined by my colleagues in the Queens office, Hye-Kyung Yang, Katie Crawford, Ryan Jacobson, and Colin Ryan, as well as colleagues from the Department of Housing Preservation and Development and New York City's Economic Development Corporation, who will be on hand to answer any questions you may have at the end of our presentation. They represent a talented and committed group of planners, designers, and housing experts who have worked diligently in this past year to achieve this well-researched and informed plan that you're about to hear. The city is proposing a series of land use actions across a 54-block area in Western Queens to support and facilitate the implementation of goals and objectives of One LIC, a neighborhood plan that is the subject of a community planning process to help define and implement a long-term vision for Long Island City. The plan's goals and strategies respond to the city's housing needs and capture the opportunities of this unique, transit-rich, and culturally vibrant neighborhood. The plan's goals also represent the specific feedback and comments we have gathered from community members, local organizations, and stakeholders, including our elected officials during an 18-month-long public engagement period. Approval of the One LIC plan would mean adding more homes in the area, including more affordable homes. It would create more opportunities for jobs across existing and growing industries, and it would bring improvements to public spaces and the necessary infrastructure investments to support a successful, thriving, resilient mixed-use neighborhood. As proposed, One LIC is projected to create close to 14,700 new homes, of which approximately 4,300 would be permanently income restricted and rent regulated. The plan would also create nearly 3.5 million square feet of new commercial and community facility floor area, and permitting the space that would support approximately 14,400 new jobs. All of this to develop in an area that has access to public transit, to essential services, and employment opportunities. I will now turn this over to the project lead of One LIC, Hye-Kyung Yang, who will lead us through the proposal.
Thanks, Lynn. We'll start with an overview of the proposed actions and introduce the project area. Then we'll go over its history, key context, and existing conditions. And then we'll share a summary of our engagement efforts, then dive into the details of this proposal. Thanks. Okay. So through the Long Island City Draft Neighborhood Plan, the city is seeking the following land use actions: to encourage housing growth while requiring permanently affordable housing served by public transit, enliven corridors with active ground floor uses and streetscape improvements, and incentivize job growth in the neighborhood. We're proposing zoning map and zoning text amendments to support the area's growth while being an affordable place to live for both current and future residents by applying mandatory inclusionary housing to the project area and expanding opportunities for waterfront open space. The proposed actions also include modifying the existing special Long Island City mixed-use district to create more opportunities for housing, community facility, and manufacturing spaces to support the neighborhood's growth. As co-applicant to this application, HPD is seeking an urban development action area project and disposition approval to redevelop and improve city-owned land with income-restricted housing. With co-applicants DCAS and EDC, we are seeking approval for acquisition, site selection, and disposition of non-residential city-owned property. And lastly, we're proposing city map amendments to demap existing paper streets, adjust the width of other streets, and to map a new public loop road. The project area shown by the dotted line covers approximately 54 blocks of Long Island City in western Queens. As you see on this map, the majority of the project area is located within Community District 2, which includes the neighborhoods of Long Island City, Sunnyside, and Woodside, while a smaller portion of the project area to the north located within Community District 1, covering Astoria and parts of Long Island City. The project area is entirely within Council District 26, represented by Councilmember Julie Wan. Next, we'll share a summary of the history of Long Island City. This 1940s photo captures Long Island City's East River waterfront, with the Manhattan skyline in the distance. To the right, the iconic Pepsi-Cola sign and Animal Basins are visible, key landmarks that speak to the neighborhood's deep industrial roots. Animal Basin once served as a critical site for maritime industry, with barges and ships transporting goods in and out of LIC's factories and warehouses. LIC's waterfront location made it a prime destination for industrial businesses in the early 20th century. The opening of the Queensboro Bridge, Queens Midtown Tunnel, and the expansion of subway service connected Queens to Manhattan and helped fuel the area's growth. By the 1950s, LIC had become a manufacturing powerhouse. But by the 1970s, the neighborhood began to experience widespread vacancies in its industrial buildings, leading to job losses and a shrinking residential population. This is a more recent photo, which captures a similar vantage point. On the right, you'll notice new development beginning to arise, while much of the surrounding area retained its original manufacturing scale. The neighborhood's close proximity to Manhattan and transit access has attracted many new residents. In the early 1990s, the Department of City Planning identified Central Long Island City as a growth area with significant potential for office, retail, and residential development, and the CPC adopted the Long Island City Framework for Development in 1995. A few years later, the Northern Hunters Point Waterfront Access Plan was adopted in 1997, marking the first of its kind in the city. In 2001, Special Long Island City rezoning and 2004 Hunters Point Subdistrict rezoning further implemented the 1995 plan. In 2006, to strengthen the city's industrial area, an industrial business zone, or IBZ, designation was applied to the neighborhood. Over the past decade, the neighborhood has been the subject of several developers-led planning processes, all of which were withdrawn prior to public review. At this time, I'll pass it over to my colleague, Katie Crawford, who is a borough planner in the Queens office, and this is her first time in front of the commission, so we welcome her here to continue the neighborhood's existing conditions.
Welcome. And that's it's quite a project to start with.
Thank you, Higgs.
Glad to hear.
All right. The One LAC project area, outlined in the dashed black line, is primarily industrial, which is indicated by the purple on the map. There are a mix of residential and commercial uses around the periphery of the project area, while the surrounding context area is home to a wider mix of uses. To the north, this includes Queensbridge houses, a medium-density public housing campus, and mix of auto-related uses. While south of the project area is home to Gantry Plaza State Park, surrounded by residential and commercial uses at a variety of densities. East of the project area is Court Square, which is home to a mix of commercial and high-density residential uses. Long Island City features some of the highest levels of transit accessibility in Queens. The wider context area is served by 8 subway lines, 15 bus lines, 2 Long Island Railroad stations, ferry service, and nearly 20 miles of bike lane. The LIC context area is home to large waterfront open spaces like Queensbridge Park and Gantry Plaza State Park, while Murray Playground, Small Triangles, and Pocket Parks serve the inland area. Given the area's industrial legacy, there are few parks within the project area, but Gordon Triangle and 12th Street Plaza are well loved by the community. And the Long Island City Waterfront Pier serves as the only waterfront public access point to the East River. Next, we will share existing conditions of the project area, broken down by 4 distinct sub-areas: the waterfront, corridors, LIC Core and Queens Plaza, and the industrial sub-areas. We will walk through the photos, starting with the waterfront. Beginning with this view across Annabelle Basin, this photo shows where the basin and East River converge. The Queensboro Bridge can be seen in the background to the left, while Court Square can be seen in the distance to the right. Next, we move inland to Vernon Boulevard, a major north-south corridor within the project area. Looking south, this photo shows the intersection of Vernon and 44th Road. The mix of building types range from this 1940s New Deal era building on the right to more modern structures like the glass building on the left. Moving north up Vernon Boulevard, looking east towards Court Square, this photo shows Queens Plaza South with the Queensboro Bridge above. Next, we move to the corridor sub-area, which includes the area around 44th Drive and the area located east of the basin. This photo is taken from the intersection of 44th Drive and 23rd Street and shows a newer mixed-use development. The elevated 7 line can be seen on the right. Moving south to the intersection of 45th Avenue and 21st Street, we see a mix of medium-density residential uses with some active ground floors. Next, the Core and Queens Plaza sub-area. This sub-area covers the area north of Queens Plaza and the area just west of Court Square. This view from 21st Street shows NYCHA's Queensbridge Houses campus to the left, juxtaposed by recent commercial development on the right. Now, we jump to 43rd Avenue, looking west towards Court Square. This photo demonstrates the truly mixed-use feel of the neighborhood. Here, the elevated 7 line separates the older warehouses in the foreground with the newer development of Court Square in the background. Lastly, the industrial sub-area, moving west to the intersection of 21st Street and 44th Avenue. This building, which houses the Queens Medallion Brokerage, is representative of the area's unique local businesses. Moving north along 21st Street to the intersection of 21st and 43rd Avenue, this photo captures the iconic Silver Cup Studios, an example
of adaptive reuse of the former Silver Cup Bakery. Now that we've seen what the neighborhood looks like today, we will continue with some of the broader trends and policies that have shaped it. Long Island City's context area has seen a significant increase in residential development and an almost 100% population increase to go with it. Recent development has been concentrated around Court Square and Hunters Point South, including this mixed-use building pictured here, which is located on Crescent and 42nd Road. Today, much of the project area is zoned with manufacturing districts, with mixed-use and residential districts zoned along the waterfront, Queens Plaza, and 44th Drive areas. Despite Long Island City's many strengths and assets, today's zoning is outdated and presents key challenges, such that there are no requirements for affordable housing, low FARs limit growth potential for existing businesses, and unlike in other parts of the city, high-density districts are not eligible for plaza bonuses. Industrial business zones were established in 2006. They were created to support industrial and manufacturing businesses by providing a relocation tax credit to those choosing to move into IBZs. To create more certainty for these businesses, the tax credit was paired with a commitment by the city to not permit residential development in these areas. There are currently 21 IBZs and 7 are in Queens. This map shows the LIC IBZ shaded in green. Next, we move to business and job trends. Industrial businesses have historically provided a majority of jobs in both the project and context areas. Over the last decade, this dynamic has reversed with employment in both areas concentrated in non-industrial sectors, which includes office, local service, and institutional jobs. The project area shows declining employment across all sectors, while employment in the wider context area is increasing. However, this growth is coming from non-industrial sectors. The Woodworks building, located on 44th Road, demonstrates the shift from predominantly industrial uses to more commercial or mixed-use buildings. Where a single-story manufacturing building once stood, we now see a full-block, mixed-use, industrial and office development that caters to more neighborhood-serving uses, such as interior designers, sports clubs, and contractors. Lastly, we have the Waterfront Access Plan, or WAP. The Northern Hunters Point WAP covers the project area's waterfront properties, including those along the East River and Annabelle Basin. The first of its kind in city history, the WAP was adopted in 1997 to set forth context-specific waterfront zoning requirements for the conditions along this stretch of the waterfront. The existing WAP includes requirements for each waterfront parcel to provide public access to and along the shoreline. The public access requirements are triggered when a parcel proposes a new development, enlargement, or change to predominantly residential and/or commercial use. The existing WAP is based on a version from the 90s and is not in line with current design standards and climate risks. To date, this WAP has not generated any new built public open space in Long Island City. Next, I will walk through our engagement efforts for this project. In fall of 2023, we kicked off engagement with the City Council member and WXY to facilitate a robust engagement process. We worked with residents, stakeholders, local businesses, community groups, and elected officials over the course of about 18 months to develop this proposal. DCP, with Councilmember Juan, WXY, and our agency partners, held a series of town halls and focus area meetings to learn about residential concerns, answer questions, and to share about existing city resources. Throughout this process, we've engaged with many agencies, especially HPD, Parks, EDC, DEP, and DOT, to align community feedback with ongoing work and to explore options for new city projects, programs, and policies. In total, we held 16 public meetings and received over 5,750 comments from about 1,800 attendees. In the winter of 2024, the Department of City Planning and Councilmember Juan's office each released surveys asking the community to share their vision for the city-owned sites. Combined, these surveys gathered over 2,350 responses. The following goals emerged from over a year of community engagement and conversations with agency partners. Goal 1, create more housing for people at a range of income levels. Goal 2, create a connected, resilient, and accessible waterfront from Gantry Plaza State Park to Queensbridge Park. Goal 3, meet the infrastructure and community needs of a growing neighborhood while mitigating climate impacts. Goal 4, support the diversity and vitality of Long Island City's unique and thriving economy. And Goal 5, make it easier for residents to access neighborhood resources and amenities. The neighborhood plan hopes to achieve these goals through zoning updates, neighborhood investments, and policy changes. I will now pass things over to Ryan Jacobson to walk through the plan proposal. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Ryan Jacobson, an urban designer with Department of City Planning. The neighborhood plan aims to reach the 5 community-driven goals through a variety of approaches available within DCP's toolkit. This includes delivering on income-restricted housing, removing zoning barriers to induce economic development opportunities, applying mixed-use zoning throughout the area to capitalize on LIC's transit access and to maintain an active neighborhood throughout all times of day, to require that the neighborhood's main corridors, such as 44th Drive, Vernon Boulevard, 21st Street, and 23rd Street, are safe, welcoming, and provide services and amenities to many residents, workers, and visitors all throughout the context area. To modernize the waterfront open space requirements and expand the neighborhood's open space network from Shoreline to Queens Plaza. And finally, to implement a variety of strategies that can elevate neighborhood resiliency. When LIC seeks the following land use actions to implement the plan's goals: a zoning map amendment, a full revamp to the existing Northern Hunters Point waterfront access plan, zoning text amendments for mandatory inclusionary housing, and an expansion of the existing Long Island City Special Mixed-Use District, a series of dispositions, a UDAP, and an acquisition and site selection. And finally, changes to the city map to improve the street network. I'll walk through the proposal using the same sub-areas we discussed earlier: the waterfront, corridors, LIC Core and Queens Plaza, and the industrial areas. We're going to begin with the waterfront. Today, the waterfront is mostly comprised of low to mid-rise buildings that host a variety of manufacturing, auto, utility, and storage uses, a sampling of what you see on the screen in this photo. Just beyond these one-story buildings is Annabelle Basin, a small inlet north of Gantry State Park, which has breathtaking views of Midtown Manhattan, and Four Freedoms Park on Roosevelt Islands. You could never imagine when standing here that that is your view. For decades, existing zoning has limited redevelopment opportunities, maintaining a condition where the public has no access to one of LIC's most notable resources, its lengthy shoreline with sweeping vistas of so many of the city's landmarks. And today, without a good reason to bring the public to the Basin waterfront, this stretch of Vernon Boulevard remains a deterrent for pedestrians and cyclists to navigate the area safely. The overarching goal across the waterfront sub-area is to extend LIC's world-class waterfront all the way up to Queensbridge Park, unlocking many special moments, like this one on the screen here, along both Annabelle Basin and the East River shoreline. New mixed-use zoning districts throughout portions of the waterfront will encourage redevelopment and deliver public benefits such as income-restricted housing, waterfront open space, neighborhood services such as shops, restaurants, schools, daycare centers, and spaces to celebrate LIC's unique culture. This illustration shows what it might feel like when crossing Vernon Boulevard in the future. Direct access will lead one down to Annabelle Basin, where new waterfront open space would provide an exciting array of activities while celebrating the beautiful views along the basin and East River. New buildings would be required to meet more stringent codes that would inspire a more eco-friendly urban character and improve climate resiliency. The proposed special district sets forth zoning regulations to encourage a built form that integrates new development within LIC's vibrant mixed-use character while balancing with controls to guide building form. The proposed special district regulations for the waterfront sub-area are driven by the following urban design principles. First, the special district would include provisions to activate lower floors by requiring more access points to the waterfront, maintaining a lower base height along Annabelle Basin, and requiring that certain building frontages be occupied with active uses and designed to facilitate a walkable waterfront experience. The second aim in the middle of the screen is to maximize sunlight and views throughout the waterfront. This is accomplished by mapping additional visual corridors, strengthening the public street network, and applying building controls for the upper portions of buildings. The third, on the right-hand side of the screen here, accounts for the fact that this stretch of waterfront will be seen from many different vantage points, up and down Vernon Boulevard, looking down 44th Drive from Court Square, and even from Manhattan's eastern shoreline. Zoning tools to accomplish a compelling skyline include requirements for tower spacing and staggering, regulations to ensure towers vary in height, and rules that shape the upper floors of towers. As noted earlier, today's zoning along the waterfront is mostly M14, which restricts residential uses and limits the opportunity for business growth. The proposal would map an M16A R9 district around Annabelle Basin and along the East River, and an M15A R8 district on parcels fronting 44th Drive, continuation of our zoning treatment upland. Requirements to include income restrictive units would apply to all areas that you see here in red and orange on this map. Parcels without a color, such as those to the north, which includes the Con Ed site, are not proposed to be rezoned, but are subject to modifications in the waterfront access plan and regulations set forth in the special district to ensure consistency across the full waterfront. Our team has studied the unique site conditions and opportunities up and down this stretch of waterfront. The waterfront access plan embodies a long-term vision for a continuous waterfront open space that meets 4 core goals. First, it expands LIC's open space amenities to complement those found in Queensbridge Park, Gantry Plaza State Park, and Hunters Point South. Secondly, it capitalizes on the setting of this unique waterfront to facilitate a mix of both active and passive open spaces. Third, it ensures design quality is beyond the city's baseline standards. And most importantly, it improves neighborhood resiliency. While new buildings along the waterfront will be held to updated flood resiliency construction standards, this proposal includes other proactive measures to strengthen LIC's coastline. This illustration shows a cross-section from north of 44th Drive facing Annabelle Basin and Gantry State Park with the East River shoreline on the right-hand side of the sketch. The waterfront access plan will establish a target elevation along the shoreline to make sure waterfront open spaces are protected from sea level rise and can withstand some storm events. Waterfront regulations will permit and encourage a variety of shoreline treatments to create a dynamic and engaging ecosystem along the East River and Annabelle Basin. Waterfront parcels will also be subject to stormwater catchment regulations through rules that were very recently updated. And most importantly, the proposal to amend the city map includes the elevation of a new city street, which Hae-Kyung referred to as a loop road. This would lift a part of this sub-area well above future tidal flood depths and make it easier for new businesses to activate the sidewalk. Another key piece of the proposal addresses a familiar challenge with many waterfront public access areas. There is often not enough space or incentive to provide active recreation amenities. We've consistently heard during community engagement that future open space needs to include a variety of activities for all ages and backgrounds, such as spaces for play, spaces for exercise, entertainment, and culture. This proposal includes a variety of incentives to encourage well-rounded offerings in all these new waterfront open spaces. The largest being a floor area bonus for parcels that decide to expand the footprint of their required public open space and include active recreation amenities along the waterfront. The proposal includes design requirements such as standards on seating, lighting, and parking, and planting to unify the additional open space with other waterfront public access areas. Parcels within the M16A R9 districts along the waterfront would be eligible to apply for a certification of an open space floor area bonus. To better understand the implications of this active recreation bonus, let's move back to that ground level view. Maybe you remember this existing photo that was shared by Katie earlier in the presentation. This is a view looking across Annabelle Basin, showing a lack of public access, an engineered hard shoreline, and a lack of vibrancy along the basin, even on this day with clear blue skies. By encouraging future developments to apply for the active recreation bonus, the open space area can be dramatically expanded. One could imagine a variety of destination moments, just like this one, along the basin and East River, with new spaces for cultural gathering, play, exercise, relaxation, and simply to look out and enjoy the view. The bonus would not only facilitate eye-catching open spaces, but a waterfront that can be enjoyed through different times of the year, open spaces that are large enough to include multiple levels of flood resiliency strategies, and open spaces that invite many people from sunrise to sunset. The revised waterfront access plan would facilitate a stronger and more connected waterfront. While a core goal of this plan is to establish a north-south connection linking Gantry to Queensbridge, the points of access to Annabelle Basin and the East River are integral and are expanded through the provisions and regulations here. The following map sets forth the waterfront access components, including where visual and or physical access is required, where new street improvements will provide a physical connection to the shoreline, where shore public walkways are required, and finally, where open space may be expanded as a supplemental public access area. As a parcel plans for redevelopment, they will be required to comply with the regulations set forth on each of these parcels. Incrementally, this waterfront access plan works towards the long-term vision for making that north-south connection. I'll now shift focus to a different sub-area, the corridor sub-area, which covers the southeast portion within the study area as shown in orange on the key map on the bottom left-hand side of the screen. Two of the neighborhood's main corridors are captured in this photo: 44th Drive, which terminates at Court Square in the City Court building, and Vernon Boulevard, as well as Gordon Triangle, right in the middle of the screen here, which is one of the few green spaces within the study. Today, this intersection and a large portion of the area in orange on that key map is located in a zoning district that prohibits residential and mixed-use buildings like those throughout Hunters Point South and further down 44th Drive near Court Square. The underlying zoning has impeded redevelopment and led to a public realm that is unwelcoming to pedestrians, cyclists, and public transit users, as there are plenty of bus stops in this location. This type of condition should not exist at the intersection of two legitimate main streets, especially where they are surrounded by one of the area's most notable public spaces. The proposed actions would remove this zoning impediment and help realize a new vision for these corridors. By rezoning the two new districts that permit residential, there is an ability to grow LIC's housing stock and require income-restricted units throughout this sub-area. Special streetscape regulations would be applied along both corridors to create a more inviting experience for pedestrians, cyclists, and public transit riders. The department is working closely with other agencies to coordinate public realm improvements to improve safety and mobility up and down these vital corridors and other interventions to improve the public space at this critical node. The zoning proposal would increase housing opportunity throughout the area pictured on the map on the right here. The higher densities, as seen in brown, would be concentrated along 44th Drive and areas adjacent to the waterfront sub-area, where they will transition down to the existing context to the southeast. Acknowledging the lower density character near Murray Playground and south of the study area, the proposed districts in orange and yellow would step down along Vernon Boulevard and further into Hunters Point. Mandatory inclusionary housing is mapped throughout all of the shaded areas on this map to ensure future residential development includes income-restricted units. Here's a closer look at the height and setback controls for each of these M and R paired districts. Each district has a maximum base height and maximum building height. The maximum permitted height of buildings scales up from 95 feet for mid-block areas east of Vernon Boulevard to 155 feet along 44th Drive to 215 feet west of Vernon as one moves closer to the waterfront. I will now pass it off to Colin Ryan to proceed with the industrial sub-area.
Thanks, Ryan, and good afternoon, Commissioners. Today's industrial areas within the IBZ are a workforce center, host to a variety of businesses. While many of them serve citywide needs like office construction, there has been a growth of businesses that directly serve the LIC neighborhood, such as barbershops, breweries, and sports clubs. In recent years, the creation of the 12th Street Plaza acts as a public realm intervention for workers and neighborhood residents alike. However, today's zoning continues to restrict growth of these businesses, while the public realm conditions can be hostile for pedestrians seeking to access these amenities. The proposal for this sub-area would maintain the same uses allowed in industrial areas today while encouraging business growth. Building on the success of the 12th Street Plaza, the proposal would apply limited streetscape regulations along key corridors within this sub-area in order to create a safe and engaging public realm. The proposal calls for applying a variety of M1A districts, mapping M16A and 8 FAR district closest to the high-density core of LIC. M15A, a 6.5 FAR district, would be mapped to step down away from the core and relieve constrained street networks. Lastly, the M14A will be mapped to right-size the needs in the more strongly industrial center of the IBZ and to the north as a step down to the Dutch Kills neighborhood. At the bottom of this slide, you'll get a closer look at what these districts permit. M1A districts encourage loft-like building forms with flexible envelopes to address a variety of business needs. The maximum building height ranges from 155 to 245 feet. Today's LIC core and Queens Plaza area hosts a variety of land uses. Within Queens Plaza, the redevelopment in recent decades has delivered on housing production, but underlying zoning did not require affordable housing. There are also no incentives within the existing special district to encourage the creation of open space, leaving the neighborhood without sufficient green spaces. Other areas, however, are still zoned M today and are either vacant or underutilized based on the proximity to transit at the Queensboro Plaza and 21st Street Queensbridge stations. The proposal calls for expanding and introducing high-density mixed-use districts as already mapped directly to the east, while providing income-restricted units. Streetscape regulations would be applied along key corridors in order to create an engaging public realm. An open space bonus would also be introduced to this area for the first time. The proposal would map M16 paired with R9 and R10 districts adjacent to transit stations and existing high-density mixed-use districts near Court Square. The M16 R9 district permits a higher commercial and manufacturing FAR at 15, while the R10 paired districts permit a higher residential FAR, but max out at 12 across all uses. Areas receiving no changes to use or bulk are currently zoned for the proposed districts. Zoning districts south of the Queensboro Bridge do not include a height limit, similar to the existing districts adjacent to them. This would provide flexibility in the envelope for the delivery of other incentives within the special district. It would also encourage improved building forms through encouraging towers instead of bulky, squatter buildings that feel imposing at the street level. The M16A R10 district to the north, however, would impose a height limit to 750 feet to address concerns of shadows on the adjacent Queensbridge houses to the west. As mentioned before, LIC's open space network is very limited, particularly in the core. As part of the special district, sites larger than 25,000 square feet within the sub-area would be permitted to seek an authorization for a floor area bonus in exchange for providing publicly accessible open space. Proposals would require an application process that includes further environmental review. Through engagement and close coordination with the School Construction Authority, we learned that there is a strong need for schools in this area, while finding appropriate sites for them can be challenging. The limited number of public sites in the study area also requires the city to look towards private land to develop schools. Apologies. In order to ease school siting, the special district would create an exemption for floor area used for schools up to 150,000 square feet. This exemption would apply across the entire project area. To accommodate bulk relief, the special district would also include an authorization for height up to a maximum of 30 additional feet. The proposed actions also call for a zoning text amendment pursuant to Appendix F to map MIH to portions of the project area shown here in orange. This will result in approximately 4,000 permanently income-restricted units in Long Island City. There are also site-based proposals with the related actions. The project area has 3 city-owned sites near the waterfront, centered along 44th Drive, 2 sites under the bridge to the Ed Koch Queensboro Bridge, and lastly, the Con Edison property, while not a city-owned site, is also subject to site-specific actions. 3 sites along 44th Drive were the subject of a public workshop held this winter to better understand the community's vision for this portion of the waterfront. A set of community visions were developed based on feedback from the workshop. First, an active community space with housing, open space, commercial space, and community facilities to serve the needs of the existing and future LIC residents. And second, a new waterfront open space that would complete the vision for a continuous public waterfront from Queensbridge Park to Gantry Plaza State Park. Now that we've introduced the 3 city-owned sites, let's take a closer look at the specific actions proposed for them. This photo shows the existing structure at 4459 45th Avenue. The approximately 42,500 square foot site is currently used for the DOT storage and operations. The site is the subject of a UDAP action. To meet the plan's goal of creating more housing for people at a range of incomes, co-applicant HPD is seeking a UDAA designation, UDAP product approval, and disposition of a city-owned property to facilitate the development of approximately 320 new income-restricted units, with potential space for a new community facility that could include an educational component and/or retail. With co-applicant DCAS, we are seeking disposition of the city-owned property at 4436 Vernon Boulevard and 499 44th Drive. These properties are currently occupied by DOE offices that support their citywide operations and adjoining parking area. Community interest in the transformation of these sites has led to this proposed action. Approval of this action would give the city the ability to redevelop the site with community-serving uses expressed by the public during our engagement process. Following certification, EDC plans to issue an RFI or request for information. The RFI will allow respondents to share their concerns or concepts to convert all or a portion of the building to other commercial, light industrial, retail, and or community serving uses. The lots under the ramps to the Ed Koch Queensboro Bridge are also subject to disposition approval at Block 428, lots 12, 13, and 16, and Block 429, lots 13, 15, and 29. The disposition action is necessary for the city to enter into any future agreement with private entities on the adjoining privately owned sites. At this time, there are no known projects, but this act would allow the city to maintain control over what development rights are conveyed for the greater need of the city. Project development would occur through a future RFP process where detailed programmatic requirements such as open space would be outlined in a request for proposals. A major waterfront property included is the Con Edison Learning Center, which fronts along the East River and is located approximately 600 feet south of the Queensboro Bridge. Due to its critical role as a training facility for the utility company, we do not expect redevelopment on this site in the near future. Regardless, the neighborhood plan strives to reach one of its leading goals to connect the East River waterfront from Gantry down to Queensboro Bridge, to the Queensbridge Park. As co-applicants, DCAS and EDC are seeking acquisition and site selection of a portion of Block 488, Lot 114, which aligns with the nearly 900-foot-long waterfront portion of the Con Edison property. Approval of this action would grant the city the ability to acquire the waterfront portions of this lot in the future, facilitating the continuous connection along the shoreline. The existing street network along the waterfront does not provide sufficient circulation to align with the proposed actions. For example, 45th Avenue is a 30-foot wide, which is well below citywide standards, while 44th Drive, just a block to the north, is excessively wide along the block that it terminates at 100 feet wide. In order to enhance circulation and right-sized streets to create a distinct waterfront, we are proposing a series of changes to the city map, including mapping a new loop road, labeled here as 5th Street, connecting 45th Avenue and 44th Avenue, demapping street ends at 44th Drive and 44th Road, widening substandard streets at 45th Avenue, realigning portions of 44th Road, and narrowing portions of 44th Drive in order to create an accessible, intimate, and well-connected public waterfront. In addition to land use actions, 1LIC also includes various city-led programs and investments to support the increase in density and land use changes. While long-term investment in the public realm and infrastructure are being considered, we want to highlight a few existing and ongoing investments, some of which are a response to recent engagement. These new capital projects reflect the city's commitment to a holistic neighborhood plan. For example, DEP is working closely with DCP on a drainage analysis of localized and area-wide sewer planning. Also, as you can see on the slide, New York City Parks is currently making additions to Queensbridge Baby Park. This park is located between Queensboro Bridge and the Queensbridge houses, which was previously a maintenance yard, and is being turned into a community gathering space that includes a lawn, benches, and game tables. The School Construction Authority, or SCA, has a number of planned investments and ongoing projects in LIC. By academic year 2029, the neighborhood will see 2 new elementary schools with approximately 1,100 new school seats. In addition to generating new income-restricted units by applying MIH and the development of new units on city-owned land, we also seek to preserve affordability through a range of tenant and homeowner protections through HPD programs. To proactively combat landlord harassment and tenant displacement, the city will launch the Partners in Preservation Program in LIC and Sunnyside, which funds local community-based organizations to do tenant organizing, canvassing, and know your rights workshops. To retain and stabilize homeowners and support generational wealth building for LIC residents, the city is investing in the Homeowner Help Desk, a one-stop shop for financial and legal counseling around foreclosure prevention, deed theft, and home repairs. The city is also increasing access to Home Fix 2.0, a low and no-interest home repair loan program. Partnerships with local CBOs and elected officials to educate tenants and homeowners about their rights and available resources will also be offered through trainings, classes, and resource fairs. Finally, and thank you for bearing with us, I'll summarize the findings of the environmental analysis and racial equity report. As part of this application, a draft environmental impact statement, or DEIS, was prepared. DCP, acting on behalf of the CPC as lead agency, issued a notice of completion of a DEIS on April 18th, 2025. Where the DEIS does not identify significant adverse impacts, technical areas have been grayed out. Significant adverse impacts are identified for the categories shown in green to the right. Mitigation measures are identified in the DEIS and will be further refined for the final environmental impact statement, or FEIS. New York City's Displacement Risk Index is comprised of 3 risk factors that are combined to create an overall risk level. Population vulnerability includes the household characteristics that make a household more or less likely at risk of being forced to move, like poverty level and how much of your income you spend on rent. Housing conditions includes characteristics of the housing itself that contribute to housing stability, for example, rent stabilization, income restrictions, and maintenance issues. And lastly, market pressure includes neighborhood conditions that can make it harder for a household to stay in their home, like housing price changes. North of the project area has higher population vulnerability and less secure housing conditions than other NYC neighborhoods, leading to a higher overall displacement risk as seen in the darker pink. While the rest of the area surrounding the project area has a slightly lower displacement risk, but higher than many surrounding neighborhoods in Manhattan and Brooklyn, demonstrating the need to include income-restricted housing within the project area. As per the report, the local area's population in Astoria and Long Island City, which approximates Community District 1, is identified as approximately 15% Asian, 7% Black, 25% Hispanic or Latino, and 47% white. Between 2010 and 2020, the population has increased across all race and ethnicity groups, aside from Hispanic or Latino, which did not substantially change. Approximating Community District 2, the local area's population in Sunnyside and Woodside is identified as approximately 39% Asian, 3% Black, 28% Hispanic or Latino, and 26% white. Between 2010 and 2020, the population increased across all race and ethnicity groups. Kate Young will now close out the presentation.
To facilitate the proposal, the department proposes zoning map amendments to promote housing and job growth and map MIH in areas with an increase in residential density. We are also seeking to expand the existing special LIC mixed-use district to modify the waterfront access plan and to create a toolkit of floor area exemptions, CPC chair certifications, and authorizations to achieve certain plan goals. Designation of a UDAA, project approval of a UDAP, and disposition of city-owned property to facilitate the redevelopment of underutilized waterfront sites. Disposition approval of lots that contain the ramps to the Ed Koch Queensboro Bridge, acquisition and site selection to facilitate the creation of publicly accessible open space along the East River waterfront, and city map amendments to improve circulation along the waterfront. One LIC is an opportunity to re-envision the Long Island City neighborhood from a former industrial hub into a livable mixed-use and inclusive community. Ensuring growth is met with smart planning for infrastructure, sustainability, and climate resiliency. In total, we project one LIC would create approximately 14,700 new homes, with around 4,300 as permanently income-restricted housing. This plan also includes space for roughly 14,400 jobs, while being a catalyst for capital and program-based investments and aligning with City of Yas and citywide and waterfront resiliency programs. Thank you. And with that, the team and I are happy to take questions.
That's great. Well, thank you very much for that. You all did a great job. Yeah, let's do it. We appreciate all of the effort and time that went into coming to such a thoughtful presentation, and even more importantly, a thoughtful plan for this neighborhood. And this obviously has been under discussion in a variety of forms over many, many years. And I believe that you all are in a place to finally get this right, so congratulations. I am, out of consideration for the time and the agenda today, I'm going to defer to my colleagues to see if they have questions. And I'm going to start with Commissioner Goodrich.
Thank you so much. That was a very informative and comprehensive presentation. I really appreciate it. My first question is, a little while ago, Councilmember Juan had stated that she preferred or suggested for the city-owned land to have 100% affordable housing. I saw in the presentation that on at least one of them, there's going to be 320 income-restricted units, and I was wondering if that was 320 total, or meaning 100%, or if it was out of a larger number of housing units. The larger question is really if the city-owned land will have 100% affordable housing.
That is correct. On the DOT site that we showed as 44, forget the address, 44-59, 45th Avenue, it will have 100% affordable housing. The 320 units will be 100% affordable housing.
Great. And for the Vernon Boulevard one as well? I think there were two. I think there were two city-owned.
4436 Vernon.
4436 Vernon. That is the site for the DOE building. We're currently there are plans for release of an RFI. The EDC team could speak to it more, but the request for information would be issued to really better understand the feasibility of adaptive reuse of the existing DOE building. So the future of it is unknown, but we are releasing this RFI to gather interest.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The environmental report, one of the things I was wondering about, the presentation mentioned school areas, the exemption for school floor area, but another part of the schools I was wondering about is when you have the capacity to bring a lot more people, meaning like thousands more people to a neighborhood, sometimes the school sizes are impacted, and that's also part of the environmental report oftentimes. So, you know, if we have like 14,000 more apartments, that could easily bring, I don't know, it could be for, you know, thousands more children. Mm-hmm. And I am wondering, as part of the environmental plan, if there are any changes to infrastructure for that, if existing schools will not be able to have the capacity to handle that many more children in the neighborhood.
That is correct in that the new wave of residents or the units that we've calculated in the environmental analysis does analyze the growth of residential population that will come along with the students or the children, and the DEIS that was released on Friday will go through sort of like the numbers and analysis and where we are with that chapter. But, yeah.
Okay, so we don't know. I didn't get a chance to review the DEIS. If
Sure.
It was released on Friday. We don't know yet.
Yeah, there is going to be an impact on elementary school seats from this rezoning. So the added number of seats would be about 1,300 to this area. Without the rezoning, there's still a seat need for just elementary school seats. So these are the PS seats. And so that's why we've been working really closely with the SDA in identifying the appropriate locations and spots for a school. And part of the plan, we are also writing into the text a school floor area exemption on private sites. So meaning if a developer has a large enough site that the SDA agrees to, then we could design for a school on that site, and that floor area gets exempted from the larger development. So it's essentially, I think, the thought of creating space for this critical public infrastructure, and clearly we do need it in this neighborhood.
So just to clarify, because I was wondering what happens in a case like this where you really do have a need. So the plan would be to build more schools, to possibly build a school?
I think the plan is we're looking at multiple options, not just one school, because the number is fairly high.
Oh, yeah, sure. Stephanie Shalou, Director of Environmental. And just to note, the projection is over a 10-year build-out, and so all of the overcapacity or oversubscription of the infrastructure isn't going to happen overnight. So it allows the city to kind of monitor things over time. The areas in the sub-districts where there's most need, we're able to direct the resources and focus on strategies to, as Lynn said, build schools, expand schools, or add space so that students have places to attend school.
Thank you. That is all of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Oh, wait. Oh, no. I'm so sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, yep.
Queensbridge Houses, the NYCHA development. I just wanted to confirm, because we had, this whole thing with City of Yes and the campus part. Will there be any development on or near the NYCHA development there? Not on the campus.
Related to rezoning outside the campus, yes. To the north, where you saw north of Queens Plaza North and adjacent to Queensbridges, but not within the campus, no.
Okay. And it was listed as a partner. NYCHA is obviously listed as a partner here, and I'm just wondering, I'll save that. Fine. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Marin.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the team for the presentation. So I just want to put it out there. I know we heard the response, but I also was concerned about the city-owned sites and whether or not they were going to be 100% affordable. You did mention three, one which has residential, the second is 4436 Vernon, and, you know, you did mention it's a joint RFI that's going to go, a joint site, that joint site in this application that then will have an RFI from EDC to decide what to do with the site, right? If demolition is the way of choice, what is the underlying zoning and what can be built there?
If demolition was of choice later past this, later past in the future.
Correct.
The zoning is thank you. This is or 8, sorry.
M15A R8, that would allow for residential, commercial, or manufacturing. It's a pretty significant amount of density, but it's a very large site that is a waterfront site. It's going to require the build-out of waterfront open space, the build-out of a loop road, which we showed on a few slides, and potentially the build-out of the 44th Drive street end open space.
That's if there's demolition, or that's without demolition? I'm just trying to figure out.
In both scenarios,
Okay.
We envision a build-out of these public space amenities and the fully connected street network. In the event of a full demo, you have a pretty large site to work with that would fit multiple buildings. So there are a lot of different scenarios that could be worked out, some which may favor a very high percentage of affordable units, some which might be a little closer to an MIH kind of mix, affordability mix.
Why not 100% affordable? I know that this is just an RFI and we haven't gotten to where we need to be, but suppose the time does come, why not 100% affordable?
I think that one of the main challenges is going to be the substantial site costs, both to relocate the DOE, which is currently on that site, to improve the site with public access, that waterfront open space. There's shoreline remediation work that needs to take place, the build out of that loop road. So it's a substantial site cost and it's a difficult balancing act, but happy to pass this over to the Economic Development Corporation, which we've been working with.
I just also want to add that throughout community engagement process, we also heard other needs beyond housing. So affordable community facilities is one of them, open space is one of them. And it is a challenging site. Maybe Adam can speak more to the cost of it, but you know, there's an existing use right now. It's an old building, so any kind of demolition, it will cost the city a fair amount of money. And we are also weighing other public benefits and interests on this as well. So that's why the RFI will allow us to explore the different options that we have and what would bring the most public benefit, I think, to the site.
So I think I'm hearing, Lynn, that the condition of the building itself is not in great condition anyway, right? So how do we try and make this a community facility, knowing that the condition of the building may not suit itself for that?
I think
or for any development.
With the request for information would kind of allow us to see what that cost is, like exactly the number and the magnitude and the parameter that we are working with. Okay.
Thank you for that. And then there was a third site. Was that the one under the bridge, under the access to the bridge?
Correct.
And is that also contemplated? What is contemplated to go there, if anything? Or is this going to be an RFI as well for him to see what can go there?
That is, the goal is to allow us to sell the development rights associated with those properties. It's under the ramp, so you can't build anything on top. But it's city-owned. It's currently under DOT's jurisdiction. And there are adjoining private site owners, private site lots to those sites. So we can sell them to those adjacent properties.
Right.
And, you know, and I think there has been talks with the community council member of programming those sites for either open space or other community serving spaces as well.
And the funds from the sale would benefit whom in the city?
I'm sorry?
The sale of the funds as a result of the sales would benefit whom? What would those be used for?
So I don't know if maybe EDC can jump in on this. My understanding is when we sell any development rights, it goes into a general city coffer, so we can't we can't say it's going to go to this particular project or.
Thank you, Lynn.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Cerullo?
Thank you, Chair. So I'm focused just on sort of the public realm pieces of the proposal, but I'm going to just focus on the waterfront. Trying to get a sense, and I know said it was sort of a projected 10-year build out, we'll say, of all of the neighborhood. So I guess that's a sort of a more of a manageable number when you think about from beginning to end, 10 years is not that long a time. But is it envisioned, or do we know, is the city itself going to fund the infrastructure and design of the waterfront pieces of this project? Or is it expected that as development occurs, sections of the waterfront will be constructed? And how is there consistency in the design, and who then manages each piece of this? And how long do we really, if it's 10 years, then we'll stick with 10 years, but we don't really know. And thinking about the public benefit of something as wonderful as this, how do we best ensure that that amenity is created for the public in the shortest amount of time as the neighborhood grows and changes and is redeveloped?
I am so lucky to have Ryan Jacobson talk to urban design here, but we have been working collaboratively and closely with the private developers on the waterfront who have been excited about the waterfront connections and the mechanisms that we will have in place in this proposal to make sure that everything is connected. But Ryan?
Thanks. These are great questions. My favorite thing to talk about. So the way that waterfront access plans work is that it definitely does kind of anticipate incremental development. One space opens, we wait a couple of years, and then the next space opens. If you take a walk through Gowanus, it's a really good example of something that's currently in progress. A few open spaces are already open, and it's starting to become an exciting open space network. To the first question, who builds it out? For the most part, if it's a private parcel, it's expected that the private development builds that out as part of our requirements. They need to set aside a certain amount of space for open space, a certain percentage of their lot area, and comply with all the requirements that I had on the screen for connections to that open space, to the shoreline. So that's built out by private developers. The way that we ensure design consistency is by setting forth design requirements for planting, seating, lighting, everything that you can imagine. We've got design standards at a citywide scale, but when we have the opportunity through a neighborhood plan to draft up a waterfront access plan, then we can put really specific context-driven regulations, such as a few that I presented, such as a target elevation to raise the level of these shore public walkways so that they'll at least withstand sea level rise up to the year 2100. So we use this as a tool to create that consistent stretch. I will say that we have a couple of challenges along this waterfront to creating that full connection. We have a few street ends that are publicly owned, one of which we're demapping. That will be a street end that we're still kind of working through all the details of how to get that open space at the end of 44th Drive, as well as to the north, a city-owned site that's underneath the Queensboro Bridge, and the Con Ed site, which is a challenge as that building has been present for many years in place. So we're also working with Con Ed to figure out a kind of interim condition where we can envision that connected open space over time.
I understand, and very helpful. And I realize that there are design standards. I guess I'm thinking of the fact that over time, the standard is in a this is the light pole, this is the bench, and you could have changes in the streetscape, so to speak, because within standards, there might be different options. And so I was just envisioning, trying to envision over a decade or more of development where you could have this piece built and this piece built and this piece in the middle not yet built. And if these are the lights they're using here because they meet the standards, and then these are the lights they're using here, you could have this. What we're trying to accomplish is a continuity and an experience for people when it's possible, unless it becomes more specific. And I'm not one to always require what should be done, but given the parcels along the waterfront, I would think it would be helpful to create something that would make it clearer so that the consistency we hope to accomplish doesn't become a mishmash of wonderfully designed things, but inconsistent with one another as you go from one parcel, which is all invisible to the public. It should be invisible to the public as you're experiencing once it's built out, but it may not be. And one final question on this, is it also envisioned that the parcel remains and the portion of the built-out waterfront section remains the responsibility of the developer in some way, or?
Yeah, and apologies, I didn't answer that last question.
No, that's fine. No.
So there are two options for a developer. A developer can either agree to maintain that portion through a maintenance and operations agreement with the Department of Parks, or they can transfer that over to Parks and basically pay into a maintenance fund for the Department of Parks to maintain that space. We have very few cases of that. I think there are one or two spaces on the Greenpoint Williamsburg waterfront. Most of these waterfront public access areas are owned and maintained by private development, but have to comply with signage provisions and stay open to the public.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Kamani?
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation and all the work. I think I asked this of all the neighborhood plans and and thank you for the engagement, the resident engagement, but just, was there anything you learned from the resident engagement that surprised you, that you weren't expecting, generally? And then I'm always going to wonder most about public housing residents and their involvement. And was there anything from public housing residents in Queensbridge that surprised you, or that the team took notice of, or didn't come up in other resident engagement activities? During our engagement, there was a call for, a call for open space, much needed in the inland portion of our study area. There was a call for infrastructure needs, existing conditions, to be addressed. What surprised us a little bit was perhaps density was okay. So that was refreshing to hear because of this want and this need for mandatory inclusionary housing, affordable housing. I would say that when we engaged with Queensbridge, there was a call and a need for, if you're asking for surprises, I was surprised that the residents called for more parking spaces. But they did speak on the quality of life in the Queensbridge houses, a need for supermarkets and groceries that were accessible. But the most surprising, I think, was the parking.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Rampersad.
Thank you for the presentation, and thank you to the Queen's office. It's been a busy year, I guess, even going back to Willard's Point. I had a similar question with regards to what was the community feedback, and what was their pushback in terms of, did you get any additional feedback for waterfront design? That was one. I'm just going to ask a couple, and then you can just answer. Second question is in regards to DEP with this drainage plan that they're working on. I know that the Jamaica plan is a massive undertaking in itself. Is there a timeline that DEP has given you in terms of when they will have this proposed plan ready? And my last question is towards manufacturing in terms of, do we know the current number of manufacturing jobs that are there now, and what do you anticipate the growth with this neighborhood rezoning?
Okay, so the first one was waterfront design. Yes, we did hear during our winter workshop, towards the end of 2023 workshop on the waterfront. Actually, our proposal, I think, does capture a lot of the design active recreational space along the waterfront, which is exciting to put into our proposal. So there's that. The DEP drainage plan, we are working closely with DEP, and maybe the timeline is a little bit off, but I think they're working towards something towards the end of the year. I will get back to you on that. Sorry, there was a lot of last-minute environmental review that I had to follow up on. And then manufacturing jobs. I believe the number is 4,700 jobs here currently. I don't know off the top of my head what the increase in job growth will be, but I will get back to you.
Okay. And I'll hold back the other questions for future.
Okay, great.
Go ahead.
Right, go.
On the waterfront, we did something very specific in this neighborhood study, where we took stakeholders on a walk shop. We toured the neighborhood, looked at every single one of the parcels, and talked through the possibilities to envision what the future could be. And then we had a workshop, very hands-on, where we imagined where future connections should be located, what kind of open space amenities should be located where. So this set of waterfront access regulations that we crafted is very much based on what we heard during those workshops.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Osorio.
Thank you, Chair. Congratulations to the department in reaching this milestone. It's certainly a really interesting plan. I was really compelled by how much cross-referencing there is among the chapters in the EIS. It's really comprehensive and also very detailed. A couple of my questions build on some of the prior questions, and also thank you so much for addressing and sharing with us where you are in terms of the process. A lot of my questions build on some of the prior questions. I guess I just wanted to start with a comment about your response to Commissioner Marin's question on, public land, 100% affordable housing, and what are the implications of that. In your response, you referenced how, there are other priorities that you've heard throughout the process, impact on schools, impact on open space. But if we are to compromise housing, it should be the market rate. It should not be the amount of affordable housing that we can produce in public land. I appreciated your response to the question about Commissioner Goodrich's question on the schools. Clearly it's a significant adverse impact, but I appreciate how you at least delineated, in addition to what you said regarding the potential construction of another building, these other three strategies. And I was wondering, when do you think that you can have a little more sort of like detail for us prior to when the FEIS is released? I mean, you talk about restructuring existing school space, relocating administrative functions, and then the third one, which is creating another school. When do you think that you'll have a little more information for us to engage on that topic, on the mitigation strategies to address the impact on schools? Hello.
We will continue to explore with our agency partners, and we also, of course, have our capital planning team within DCP that works on the neighborhood capital strategy for this. So we do hope to be able to provide more information for the FEIS and for the Queens team to come back at post-hearing follow-ups throughout the process. Fair enough.
Thank you. And while you're there, I also just, I think it would be great to have that same level of potential mitigation strategies laid out with open space. Because and I also appreciate the constraints. I mean, you've already listed that you're 16 acres below, and that's not a small amount of open space. But there are no mitigation strategies, and the DI is already hinting that maybe this is going to be an unmitigatable significant adverse impact, and I think it's too soon for that. I really feel that for this to truly accomplish its comprehensiveness, we need at least to explore every possible strategy and not just rely on private, creation of open space. I thought that the presentation was great in highlighting some of the existing city investments on improvement, the existing open spaces, but we need to create more.
Yes, understood. We will continue to do that. I think because of the limited city-owned sites here, we do have to leverage the privately owned sites, both from waterfront access and the bonus that was mentioned for the providing open space. So we think it's going to be kind of a mixed bag approach to make some incremental progress on improving the open spaces.
Thank you. Noting that there are no significant adverse impacts on indirect or a direct displacement of residents or businesses. Well, I wonder if the next time we can see this, you can show us a little bit what could be the plan for the potential displacement of businesses, to Commissioner Rampershat's question, given that it's significant, but we're talking about, I think I read 309 jobs, 28 businesses, mostly manufacturing too. Yeah. So if you can, share with us a little bit what could be the strategy to make sure that they're taken care of, that would be important.
Sure. We'll work with our Economic and Regional Planning Division to get a better sense of that, what types of jobs and businesses are there. The sites, the projected development sites here are large and underutilized for the most part, and so there's, as you mentioned, a fairly low absolute value number, but of course we'll take a close look and provide some more detail on the nature of those. Thank you.
And I have one last question, if that's okay. So thank you so much also for the addressing Commissioner Cerullo's question on the waterfront and climate change impacts. But so I had a couple questions on that. One was, since this is such a significant part of the waterfront, of the Queens waterfront, did you make any hydrological analysis to understand, how the mitigation strategies respond to the projections? That's one question. I'm just curious to see, how do you determine the proposed elevations for the public walkways that are being proposed? That's one. Two, the other question that I had was, I noticed that a lot of the design requirements and design reference standards that are being introduced are mostly for the waterfront sub-area, but the preliminary floodplain, 100-year floodplain, includes parts of inland sub-area 3 and the industrial sub-area right now. And you, in your response to Commissioner Cerullo, mentioned the 2100 projections, which would basically be the majority of the entire study area. So I'm wondering if you can share with us kind of like what's been the research or the rationale to establish that.
Yeah, I can share a little. I don't know if I'll 100% address your questions, but I'll do my best. So the target elevation that is established is based on the New York City Panel for Climate Change estimates, the highest estimates for the year 2100. So we set a certain elevation to the circulation path within the shore public walkways, which elevate a portion of the shoreline and really provide protection upland as well. Okay. There are a lot of other codes and requirements at play, such as the Unified Stormwater Rule, with redevelopment would start to mitigate some of the flood risk in this neighborhood. So there are a few different things at play, but of course we look at the existing elevations and look at all the possibilities when it comes to the tools that we have at play at DCP, which unfortunately is not, it's not everything.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. The reason why I was asking this is because we need to look at storm surge here too, not just sea level rise. And if the provisions are only applying for the waterfront sub-area, then we need to see what's going to happen with the other areas that are vulnerable.
So each of those areas that is within the 100-year flood zone is going to be required to build to the building codes updated regulations that were put in place.
Okay, great. That's useful.
So from an urban design perspective, what we really look at is making sure that the ground floor of that building is not too far from the sidewalk elevation so that you still have a active public realm.
Good, perfect. And if the next time that you present it, if you can see a little more detail in terms of, again, sort of like what's expected and how do you anticipate that the mitigation strategies will respond or perform, that would be great for the area that is, as you said, then vulnerable not just to the preliminary but to the 2100 projections. And then specifically, the other thing I was going to say is it would be great if we can understand what was the impact of Sandy on this waterfront too. That would be great. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Benjamin, followed by Commissioner Mann, and then we're going to move on.
Okay, I'm going to keep my comments and questions to the bare minimum because we'll have a lot more opportunities to speak with each other, I'm assuming. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the work. At heart, though, what I see is that this is a very large rezoning to residential for basically 40-odd blocks. And even though it also increases the density of the commercial and of the manufacturing, this plan has not been put together with the idea that the future development would all be manufacturing or even largely manufacturing or commercial. Is that a fair assessment?
I would say that it does not preclude those mixed...
Correct, I understand that. But what it hopes to encourage and anticipates is a large-scale influx of a residential population into an area that doesn't have a large-scale residential population now. And in fact, where new residential is not permitted. Although my recollection is there are 2, 3-story little buildings here and there in this area that are residential in nature, some of which have like restaurants in the ground floor. So what we're really doing, I think, is proposing a new neighborhood in place of the one that is there. And I'd like to see more information on how you envision these two neighborhoods fitting together during whatever the transition period is. I don't think it'll be the 10 years that horizon that you're thinking of. I think it will be much longer, and there will be lags in some things. As we know, this is an area that tends to flood on the streets. And if the development is on the waterfront and on those streets before the DEP plan is fully effective, before all of the SD 1 and 2s are really effective, how are we going to coordinate continuing to serve the existing neighborhood and deal with this new influx? And in that vein, I was also wondering how you calculated and estimated the square footage that you believed would be created residentially, commercially, and manufacturing. I mean, it seems to me also if that's off and if this becomes a tertiary office development, what does that mean to our plan? So I guess that question is not what is your surety that the plan will happen the way you've calculated it, but given that it is this, what I consider a fairly significant upzoning and rezoning to residential, what is the plan B if commercial developers decide this is a great place for a new mini mall or other commercial activities that aren't, what's that plan B look like? And does our projection deal with the possibility that the development will not be as we anticipate?
What I can say now, and we'll come back with that post-hearing to give you a more thorough answer. What I can say now is that we've worked hard to make sure that the existing neighborhood and the future neighborhood sort of work together. In particular, I'm thinking of the industrial plan, how we are preserving the commercial industrial uses there to also grow alongside the residential developments that you've spoken about. So we've tried to propose a plan that does balance that and very sensitive ecosystem. I don't know what the future holds, but our environmental analysis does sort of try to take a look at the future crystal ball and see where the most reasonable worst case could be, and then it really between those existing today and the future. Sure, things could shift, but we sort of try to analyze the most impact, right? What would have the most impact in these categories? But yeah, we'll come back with a fuller.
Yeah, I'd love to have a further discussion, as I said, because I see this. There's only really one cutout that's north of the Queensboro Bridge, so this is really a pretty tight area that is not currently largely residential, so it would be a big change.
Yeah.
And number two, you say that in the documents that there have been discussions with Con Ed about Big Alice, and about obtaining somehow some kind of waterfront access around Big Alice. I'd really want to know a lot more about that, because that's such a big part of this waterfront. And without it, Big Alice looming over the rest of it doesn't seem like we're going to get the kind of revitalized, interesting area that we might want. And in response to the issues about unmitigable impacts, have you thought at all about lowering the density as a strategy to reduce the impacts? Now, I'm not talking about the environmental review, no impact solution, because that's not real. But have you thought about whether reducing the density in certain areas would have a positive effect on the open space ratios? That's it. And if you could get back to me and we could have more discussion, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Just one point of clarification on Commissioner Benjamin's question. This is from my own understanding of Big Alice. Big Alice is the actual Ravenswood power plant, which is
That's correct.
a little further to the north. So when we're talking about waterfront access around Con Ed, we're talking about you can tell us how best to describe the property there and its current uses, but those are not they're not both referred to as Big Alice, correct? Okay.
That's
okay. I just want you, so I why don't you clarify for me and Commissioner Benjamin, so we're both clear.
We have a few different energy generating kind of facilities along the waterfront here. To the north, directly across from Queensbridge Houses, is Big Alice, that big generating station. Renewable Ravenswood does have a plan right now that they're working on towards kind of a green future there. The site that we're mostly concerned with is the Con Ed Learning Center, the TLC. It is mainly a training facility for outdoor and indoor training for their staff. So in terms of noxious uses, it's significantly lower than Big Alice. So I just want to make that distinction.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, got it. Let's go to Commissioner Mann.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for the patience with our questions. I think I'm going to circle around many of the same questions my colleagues asked. Just on the Con Ed point, it does strike me as a real huge opportunity, the Con Ed site. And I don't know if you've got an image there, but it's, according to Zola, almost 10 acres. And it's incredibly prime waterfront adjacent to a place we're proposing to add lots of housing, and a place where we both need open space and schools. And so I guess I was curious, I know Con Ed is a bear to deal with, and I know they've got their own requirements around their land and going through the Public Service Commission for approval of disposition, which is its own process, but it has been shaken loose in the past. And so I just wonder whether it's maybe a bigger opportunity, the overall site, to think about as a future part of the waterfront, because it's also a big obstruction to NYCHA. And as the chair pointed out, it's not essential infrastructure in the way an electrical substation might be. It's very, very hard to move. So the learning center theoretically, could be incorporated in a new building. So I'm just trying to understand a little better kind of the thinking on Con Ed.
Oh, absolutely. I want to reiterate that this site itself is to the south. Okay, is there a pointer here? Not there. The generating site that you're thinking of is actually to the north and outside of our project area.
Right.
This Con Ed site is a training facility center.
Right.
So it is, it's actually it's right on our waterfront project area. Totally understood and hear you about the connection of the waterfront, and that is actually one of the main goals of Councilmember Julie Wan as well. The site itself, in our conversations with Con Ed, is not ready to leave, and they've noted that they will stay here as a training center because it is quite vital to their operations.
No, understood. I guess to me, it strikes me again, given that it's, according to Zola, 400,000 square feet of lot area here, that one could accommodate a training center and other good things like open space, schools, a flood resilient waterfront.
Okay.
Given the amount of surface parking here in particular, it just seems, given our housing need, it seems kind of tragic, frankly, that we aren't able to shake loose this site for something better. And so I just would wonder, maybe to put some helpful pressure on Con Ed here to see if they might be able to, over the course of this process, come to the table and actually think about how to do both, which I think seems possible. So that's just one point. On the questions that other colleagues were asking about the schools and the open space impacts, just wanted to drill down on those a little bit. On the schools impact, which is fairly significant, as the DAS notes, 140% over the 10-year build-out, in a place where it's very, very hard to find sites, as you've pointed out. I'm wondering whether any of the private development sites have raised their hand to say, yes, we will take the floor area bonus if the rezoning proceeds. And if, again, to put some helpful pressure on the conversation, whether there's been any meaningful interest around actually using the floor area bonus, or the floor area exemption, I should say.
There are conversations that are continuing to be had with some of the developers. Their interest in helping and being part of this neighborhood is also critical to them. So the conversations are being had.
Okay, so I guess maybe again, just echoing
Sure.
the earlier point about Con Ed, that putting some pressure on the development community here to actually then take advantage of the exemption here, given the amount of floor area we're talking about.
Thank you.
And two, over the course of this process, really come forward with some thoughts on which sites make sense. And then on the public space side of things, under the Queensboro Bridge, which is like, if we're really going to connect this to NYCHA, we have to figure that out. I know DOT, whether it's under the Brooklyn Bridge in the Manhattan side or the Brooklyn side, or the Manhattan Bridge and the Brooklyn side, has struggled to release its under the bridge assets, but with enough political pressure finally does. And so I'm just curious where DOT is on that conversation of releasing that space.
We have been working very closely with DOT on this particular topic, and they have shared interest, and they understand this is also a high priority for Councilmember Wan. So they're at the table, and they're having conversations, and we'll report back when we see you next.
Okay, and then the other just open space, the Gordon Triangle.
Yeah.
I think in some other prior iteration, maybe I've missed this in the details, there is thought of expanding that to reduce the slip lane and to create a kind of more of a Flatiron-like triangle. Do you know if that's been discussed with DOT to close that street off and expand that triangle?
You're reading my mind. We have also been working with DOT closely on this. They also are aware, obviously they've been partners with us on the need for more inland open space. So that conversation is ongoing as well.
Okay, and I assume you're exploring the core as well, the Long Island City core for the open space opportunities, given that's where the density of, okay. And then just lastly on the flood questions, do you all have a before and after of the 100-year floodplain based on the improvements you're proposing to make, or will the whole area stay in the 100-year floodplain?
We can provide that, at the next time that I see you. Sorry, I just don't have it with me right now, but we'll have it the next time.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner, thank you. We will certainly have follow-ups on all fronts. Hye-Kyung, thank you. I am going to just take this moment to move on today because we've got a lot more to cover. With appreciation to you and the LIC team, this item is now certified. Congratulations. Thank you, and let's move on. And again, reminder to commissioners, we're going to move things in a slightly different order today, and I'm going to turn to Sarah to tell us what's next. I believe I know what the answer to this question is, but I'm going to let her share it with you.
Okay, we are going to skip the upcoming certifications and post-referral reviews. We're going to skip to number 9 on the agenda. The 9th item on our agenda is a review of a general project plan in Manhattan Community District 5. Our presenter is Dylan Latif.
Great. All right, Dylan. Don't Commissioner Cerullo is recused. Don't be offended by the fact that everybody's walking out of the room. It was not something that you said, but we're glad you're here. So whenever you're ready, go right ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. You all saw this project on April 7th review session. It's a GPP modification at 592 7th Avenue in the Midtown West neighborhood of Manhattan Community District 5. The modification seeks to convert the existing office building, 5 Times Square, to a mixed-use residential building that will create 1,250 units of housing, including 25% as permanently affordable for households earning up to 80% AMI, pursuant to the 467M tax incentive. At the April 7th review session, the Commission raised a few questions that we would like to address now after communicating with the applicant. Additionally, a formal letter addressing these questions from the applicant was sent to us and has been included in your briefing package for today. To the question on lot line windows, the applicant communicated to us that the GPP being modified to declare that 5 Times Square, GPP Site 4, and a portion of the theater site, GPP Site 6E, will be treated as a single lot for the purposes of satisfying the requirement under the MDL Section 30 that every room, quote, shall have at least one window opening directly upon a street or upon a lawful yard, court, or open space above a setback upon the same lot as that occupied by the multiple dwelling in which such room is situated, end quote. Additionally, the project is required to comply with all New York City building code requirements, including those related to fire safety. Next, to address the question about the affordable housing framework being used for this project, in addition to compliance with 467M, the development is complying with the requirements, including the affordability requirements of the recently amended New York State multiple dwelling law for exceeding 12 FAR of residential use. And lastly, for the concerns pertaining to the environmental review, no significant adverse impacts were identified, and a restrictive declaration has been issued. This applies to both the points of the community facilities as well as the concerns of hazardous materials. And this concludes the presentation today, and I'm happy to take any further questions.
Terrific. Thank you for those follow-ups. Let me see if there are any questions for you. Commissioner Mann?
Yeah, I apologize. I may have just tuned out for a second, but I'm not sure I totally caught the rationale for not using MIH.
Well, so in this case, being a GPP, MIH isn't applicable, but the applicant's complying with 467M. We don't have the scope to enforce MIH here, so they're complying with the regulations of the MDL, which require affordable above 12 FAR, and in this case, it dovetails with 467M. So that's 25% at 80% AMI.
Okay, I think my question is slightly different, which is that if this were a zoning change to allow for residential in a zone that only allowed commercial, presumably we would match map MIH, and we'd have 25% at 60 AMI with 10% at 40 AMI, or another option that the commission thought were appropriate. In this case, I think we have to send a recommendation back to ESD. So I'm just trying to understand why our recommendation wouldn't be back, hey, we have a affordable housing framework in New York City that facilitates conversion of buildings. It happens to be at different AMIs than state legislation, but we want to go further, and we think we have a rationale for why, and we think it works economically, which is why we apply it in MSMX or other areas where we're doing similar conversions.
We could add that. If the commission would like, we can add that into the letter recommendation as our recommendation of the ESD board.
I mean, I think my perspective is if this were in the MSMX, for example, we wouldn't be permitting the 25% and 80. So just because it happens to be a few blocks north and subject to a GPP rather than zoning change, I think for the sake of consistency, we should make clear that's our affordable housing framework.
Yeah. So your recommendation would be to refer to what our rules would otherwise have been if done through MIH and encourage them to go as far as they can here. Is that right? I certainly have no objections to that. I don't know if anybody else does or wants to discuss that. Okay, so we can include that in. Anything else for you, Commissioner? Okay. Commissioner Marin.
Thank you. So I'm the one that asked about the lot line windows, and while I appreciate your response, it's sort of generic. We understand that they're going to have to follow building department rules. I was actually trying to find out exactly what is it that they're going to do. What is it they're going to retrofit? Sprinklers, calamine windows. What is it that is going to keep these folks safe in a fire? So the question was partially answered, and I appreciate it, but I didn't get the details I was looking for. Thank you.
We can follow up with details about the calamine windows. We had posed that to the applicant, and the response is what we got.
That would be really helpful because, we're talking about safety. We're talking about we're approving a building that's going to be converted. This is part of the city's conversion efforts of office buildings to residential. We should make sure it's done properly. And we have some kind of framework as well as to the safety measures in subsequent buildings that may face this type of situation as well.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions? Okay. All right. So we're at the stage of this process here where I would seek that assent by a voice vote subject to the amendment that we briefly discussed from Commissioner Mann, which we will be happy to add into this letter before it's sent over. Any other questions, comments about this before we do that? Okay. All right. With that, I will seek assent by a voice vote to send this letter as amended and as discussed to the Empire State Development Corporation. All those in favor, please say aye. 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 Opposed, nay. Okay. You guys have it. Thank you very much. Thank you. Sorry, was that an abstention or?
That is an abstention.
Abstention. Noted abstention. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
The next item on our agenda is a pre-hearing review of a zoning map and zoning text amendments in Brooklyn Community District 1. Our presenter is Kyra Cuevas. Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Hello. Some fun items today. This will be relatively simple, so long as it can go up.
Hi there.
Hello, happy Monday, and happy spring. All right. Good afternoon, Commissioners and Chair Garanik. Today, I will be presenting a private application for zoning map amendment and zoning text amendment at 146 North 7th Street for a pre-hearing. You first heard about this project proposal on January 6, 2025. This is a private application by 4 private homeowners to facilitate the construction of a new 6-story mixed-use building. The applicant is seeking a zoning map amendment from R6B and R6B/C14 to R6A/C24, and a zoning text amendment to map an MIH area with options 1 and 2. The project is located within Community District 1 in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and is within Councilmember Gutierrez's district. The proposed building will include approximately 3,320 square feet of commercial floor area, 23,554 square feet of residential area to build 28 dwelling units, 7 of which are income restricted. The building will provide 19 parking spaces for bicycles and 3 voluntary parking spaces.
The applicant is proposing a zoning map amendment from an R6B and R6B/C14 to R6A/C24 to facilitate the construction of the proposed development. R6A is a contextual zoning district that permits a residential FAR of 3.9 with MIH and a community facility FAR of 2.2 with a base height of 65 feet and a max building height of 95 feet. In Zone 1 or the intertransit zone, no parking is required. C2-4 districts are commercial overlays that facilitates ground floor commercial uses and has looser parking requirements than the existing C1-4 district. The applicant is also proposing a zoning text amendment to Appendix F to map MIH. The applicant is mapping MIH Option 1 and MIH Option 2, each of which require income-restricted housing set-asides, where Option 1 requires 25% of units at an average of 60% AMI, and Option 2 requires 30% of units with an average of 80% AMI. There are 9 MIH areas mapped in Community District 1 between 2021 and 2024. The application was referred out to the Community Board for 60 days. During this time, the Community Board met and voted to unanimously approve the application with conditions. Community Board members expressed their concerns in the resolution, requesting that the Community Board office and the community will be provided with a point of contact to receive and respond to problems and complaints during construction. The applicants actively communicate with the Community Board office and will provide the office with a schedule of activities that will affect the neighborhood. And finally, in good faith, the applicants will consider contributing to the enhancement of the nearby streetscape. The Borough President held a hearing on March 26th and submitted a recommendation of approval on the evening of April 15th. This concludes my presentation, and happy to take any questions.
Questions? Okay, great. We will pick this one up on Wednesday. Thank you very much. Great.
Thank you. The 11th item on our agenda is a pre-hearing review of a zoning map, disposition of city-owned property, and a city map amendment in the Bronx Community District 1. Our presenter is Stephen Johnson.
Hello, Stephen.
Hello, good afternoon. So this is an application by Bally's New York Operating Company, LLC, for a city map amendment, a zoning map amendment, and a disposition of city-owned property to facilitate the development of a gaming facility and associated uses located in Ferry Point Park in the Bronx. The City Parks Department is a co-applicant on this project, as they are on all map change actions related to parkland, and the Department of Citywide Administrative Services is also a co-applicant on the project related to the disposition action. In this presentation, when I refer to the applicant, I am referring to Bally's. The project was certified on January 21st and is back for a pre-hearing review session. The City Planning Commission public hearing will be on April 23rd. It will also serve as the public hearing for the draft environmental impact statement. Written comments for the DEIS are accepted by the lead agency until 5 p.m. on Monday, May 5th, 2025. The project site is located within Ferry Point Park and includes a public 222-acre golf course, which is licensed to Bally's. The proposed gaming facility would be located in an approximately 15.7-acre area of the golf course that is currently improved with a paved open parking lot and a golf clubhouse. I will be showing some illustrative drawings of the proposed development, which includes the casino, a hotel, and related facilities that would be part of a gaming application to be submitted to the state this summer. Separate from that gaming application is this application before the Commission. There are 3 proposed actions. The first is a city map change to demap a 15.7-acre area of parkland corresponding to the proposed gaming facility, and to map a city street under the jurisdiction of the City Department of Transportation in an area known as Ring Road, which is currently within the park and is under the jurisdiction of Parks. The second action is a zoning map amendment to map a portion of the development site related to the gaming facility as a C84 zoning district, which permits the gaming use. And the third action is the disposition of non-residential city-owned property. This is to facilitate the transfer of a non-exclusive access easement over the waterfront access road, so the applicant can have access on a Parks Road into the proposed development. These proposed actions, in conjunction with the recently adopted gaming facility text amendment, would allow the state to consider a Bally's gaming application for one of the 3 available gaming licenses. If the applicant is not awarded one of these 3 available gaming licenses, they would not pursue this project, and the development site would remain in its current existing condition. Now, this map shows the now 8 gaming facility proposals in New York City. Saks Fifth Avenue is folded officially. The 4 highlighted projects are the ones that have additional actions that were not covered by the text amendment, and all 4 have been certified. So the state's current schedule is up here on this slide. All applications must be submitted to the state by July 27th, and that is also the start of the Community Advisory Committee, which reviews all the applications. Each individual CAC will have public hearings and solicit feedback from the public, and then they will vote by September 30th, 2025, and then they must have a 2/3 majority to approve, and then forward the application to the gaming board. Ferry Point Park was initially a 171-acre parcel that came under the jurisdiction of Parks in 1937. The development site was a landfill from the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. The City Planning Commission approved a major concession for a golf complex in 1999, and of course the public 18-hole golf course opened in 2015. Here's the DOF tax map. The project area is in the black dotted line. The development site is outlined in the red dashed line, and the dashed blue line represents the ring road, which is proposed to be mapped as a city street. The solid black line is the area which was going to be proposed to be rezoned as C84. This is the area map of the proposed development. There's a small residential area to the west and a manufacturing area to the north. This is an illustration of the proposed development site. For context, the proposed new golf clubhouse is towards the top and will be located outside of the disposition area. The existing golf clubhouse is where the casino is proposed to be located. The ring road, you can see it going underneath the Whitestone Bridge, and that leads into the proposed gaming facility and the proposed new clubhouse. And you can see the circular drop-off area for the casino and hotel use. This is a development site plan. In total, the proposed development site is 2.55 million square feet with approximately 390,000 square feet of casino, 5,100 gaming positions, 117,000 square feet of food, beverage, retail, 62,000 multi-purpose event center with 2,000 seats, 488,000 square foot hotel with 500 keys, and 4,660 parking spaces. This is a close-up of the northern end section of the proposed gaming facility. The golf clubhouse is outside of the development, and it will have a separate entrance and parking area. There are solar PV panels on the roof of the casino, and the proposed gaming facility would mainly be on the ground floor and the mezzanine of the development. Here is the southern end of the proposed facility. You can see the proposed widening of the waterfront access roadway with a new bike path. This road leads to a small public parking area, walking paths into the waterfront. Here we have an existing condition view from the Bronx Whitestone Bridge. You can see the existing clubhouse behind the flag that's waving there. And this is the proposed development from a similar angle with the building heights. So now Bally's has committed to a number of improvements. If the project moves forward, many of them are related to park improvements and would be determined in consultation with the community board, local elected officials, and Parks Department. The applicant has also proposed a number of transportation improvements related to Ring Road, new bus stops, and ferry shuttle service, and ped and bike paths. The proposed gaming facility is planned to be a Gold LEED certified building. The applicant believes this would be the largest private development in the history of the borough, and includes 15,000 construction jobs and 4,000 permanent jobs. One item I want to mention that's new from when it was certified, as I included a PDF in your briefing packages on this material. The applicant has proposed a community benefit fund that would fund a variety of local projects, such as schools, night just sports, and health concerns, and the applicant can describe that at the public hearing. So just moving quickly on to the actions here. As I mentioned, the first is the city map change, which is in the two parts. The first is the DMAP 15.7 acre area of parkland corresponding to the proposed gaming facility. Map a city street under the jurisdiction of the city DOT. The second action is to a zoning map amendment. The applicant is seeking to map a C84 zoning district in the portion of the development site. The C84 permits commercial uses with a maximum FAR of 5 with no residential uses. Here we have a map of the existing zoning map on the left and the proposed C84 on the right. And then finally, the third action is the disposition of non-residential city-owned property for a portion of Lot 1, Block 5622. This is for an approximately 43,000 square foot non-exclusive access easement over the waterfront access roadway. This is the green area on the map. So moving on to the public review. CB10 held a public hearing on February 25th. And on March 20th, they voted against approval of the application by a vote of 5 to 29. In the letter they sent in for the project, the community board stated that they voted against the project, but they included a list of requests that they make annually as part of their district need statements. And that list included a number of items, including improvements and investments to Throgs Neck houses, park improvements, and community board participation in a community benefit agreement. And here we have just round out their list of 10 items that they had. Now, the Bronx Borough President, you should have been gotten a copy of their resolution, which came in this afternoon. The Bronx Borough President's letter recommends approval with conditions. In those conditions, the BP included that Bali should fund new open spaces across the Bronx, and they noted a community benefits agreement with enforceable commitments to local hiring and workforce development, public safety, support for small businesses, cultural and community investment and development, and the ongoing contributions from Bally's. And that wraps up my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. I'm going to start with Commissioner Murray.
Thank you, Chair. They talk about, the Borough President on page 7 on her infrastructure and transportation talks about an exit off the Hutchinson River Parkway that provide vehicles with a direct route to the site, as well as a northbound, to address northbound, and the overpass is included in the plan that bypasses Lafayette Avenue intersection. Mm-hmm. Is there any, did the applicant provide graphics of any of that, of how that would work, what it might look like?
Yeah, so that was a graphic they did not share with me. Okay. But they included it with the memo I sent you. Yeah,
I'm trying to find it. It's still downloading.
There's one picture of it, of the intersection. It has a new cross over the Hutch, and you can see it's there. And that'll be like it won't be exclusive, but that'll allow people who want to access the golf course, the gaming facility, the waterfront, will be able to circle around without interacting with the existing overpass, which the locals and residents use.
Yeah, that was the concern, because some of the arguments that are made about traffic, to me, seem disingenuous, and I just want to make sure I understand that whole traffic pattern and what's going on back there. Likewise, let's just say for a minute that the state does not pick this proposal. We have Ring Road, which I, in my 61 years, have never visited, and I did over the weekend, and it's weird. It's weird back there, because you're coming out of Ferry Point Park on the right, and you're going under the Ring Road. There's another part of the state park that goes down and under the bridge that you don't have access to. So my question here is, if in fact the state does not pick this as one of the venues it will support, do we know if we can count on the state, or do we have any muster with the state to be able to say that park needs some improvement so that folks can access it and not just have it as an access based on Bally's being there at the casino?
Sure. So the public can access that area now. I'm not sure if it's open at the moment, if there was some access problems to the waterfront. But that area is public accessible now because there's a little parking lot that you can drive down to. You can see it. I can go back to this image here. So this is their idea of how the improvement road. So that road exists. It says waterfront access road. It's just, kind of.
Can't get in there.
It was blocked off?
Yeah, you can't get in.
Okay. Well, it's ordinarily supposed to be open. I don't know if there was any issues with it or if there was something that happened there. But that area, you're supposed to go down and there's a waterfront pathway and parking area. So those areas are supposed to be open. I think what we did at city planning, I think maybe 10, 15 years ago, we had a study that recommended that Ring Road become a regular city street. And we still recommend that. That was something that the city, I think, would be approve of doing, and that would be something that we could continue to discuss with them. Because it would also improve access into the existing clubhouse, the golfing, and the waterfront area.
It would be more inviting. That side of the stretch of the hutch is really,
yeah,
hang out, drink, sex. It's really it's this dark back there.
Yeah.
So because I went by and saw all the condoms on the floor and the bottles, I did an in-depth look at what's over here, and there's no lights and there's nothing going on. So you see what's there. It's not benefiting the borough, and so if we can improve that, regardless of Bally's coming or not, that would be great. A great improvement for the borough and for the people that traipse this park, because most folks, as you know, go to Ferry Point Park and that's where they stay. They don't come to this side because they can't get in. It's daunting. And so if in fact Bally's does not get awarded, I'd like to see something else happen here to improve the conditions. And I'm making
Absolutely.
that statement. I agree and I approve of the fact that the city is trying to make Ring Road a city street because that'll bring other benefits to it. I realize that, so that's all appreciated.
And the city invested in the ferry landing there. That's a legit ferry connection there. People go in and take the ferry to Manhattan. So that was an investment.
More of a reason to kind of liven that place up. It'll bring more people out there to catch that ferry. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you. Commissioner Osorio?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks so much for the presentation. I just two quick questions. One is, do you have I didn't see one in the materials nor the memo, but do you have a cross section that shows the vulnerability to flooding and how the building the first?
I do not.
If not for Wednesday, but if you can request that would be great. And then I was wondering if we'll of course ask the applicant, but has there been a substantive response to the community board? I know that the comments from the Bronx Borough President, just arrived, but to the community board, has there been a substantive response that you're aware of? Otherwise, we'll ask. Oh, in any case, we'll ask.
A substantive response from the applicant team?
Yeah.
Well, the applicant team is focusing on the benefits that they believe will come with the development. So they're talking about the jobs. Are you talking about a specific area?
No, just in general, like in addition, or what's been sort of like that response? What's been the process?
So much like some of the other applications, it was a bit rowdy at the community board hearings. The applicant presented. They're focusing on their community benefits agreement. They're focusing on the jobs and economic opportunity because those are kind of the positives of what they're bringing. So they're hitting hard on that. So I think they're rolling this new community benefit agreement out and highlighting that. And I think that's the way they're trying to address any issues.
Okay, thank you. And the memo that you shared for us, has that been shared publicly as well?
The memo on Friday, I think that was in their presentation to the borough president. I'll find out.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Made public.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anybody else before we pick this up on Wednesday? Stephen, thank you.
Thank you.
We will hear this on Wednesday morning. Thank you. Okay. Sarah, what's next?
Okay. The 12th item on our agenda is a City Council modification scope determination for Brownsville NCP. The City Council proposes to modify the zoning text amendment to Appendix F, removing MIH Option 2 and adding MIH Option 3. And staff believes this modification is within scope.
Thank you. We're going to do a scope determination here. Okay. One sec. All right. So, as is our custom, we'll seek assent by voice vote to send the scope determination letter to the council. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay. Thank you very much. We will proceed. Thank you.
We'll move on to future votes. Future votes for consideration on Wednesday, April 23rd. Staff have prepared reports for Grace Houses. I'll note on 109 Marcus Garvey Boulevard, LSGD, that item is being laid over for vote on Wednesday. Lastly, for future votes, we have 145 for Harlem. There were additional testimonies and letters in your materials. Jose is here to present.
Hello, Jose.
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah.
That's great.
How's everybody doing? 145 for Harlem. A quick recap ahead of the vote on Wednesday. The project will be a 420 square foot tower comprising 3 buildings, A, B, and C, located on 145th Street in Harlem, standing with 12 FAR, 968 total units, of which 291 will be permanently income-restricted units, and will include 40 voluntary parking spaces. The department recommends approval of the application, inclusive of all the actions. Sorry, I skipped. There we go. The actions are a zoning map amendment to remap the existing CA3 R72 to a C46 zoning district, the mapping of MIH in the area, as well as the special permit to allow the location of the gathering space at the top of the tower, including also a certification to allow one additional curb cut on the narrow street, which is located in West 144th Street. And recapping the recommendation of the department, the department recommends the approval of the application and all the proposed actions. The department believes that this location is currently underutilized land, and it will be redeveloped into a dynamic mixed-use complex, delivering not just housing, but also community benefits to the area. As I mentioned before, 968 units, total units of housing, and including also addressing city initiatives like the Blueprint, Housing New York 2.0, City of Yes, and others. The department does encourage the applicant to continue to work with Community Board 10, local organizations, city agencies, and elected officials to ensure the thoughtful development of a proposed community benefit package, as well as the effective implementation of an enhanced affordability plan. Just as a reminder or a quick note, these are not part of the certified plan. It's not in the consideration of the CPC, but those were conversations that happened during the public hearing, as well as the materials that have been shared with the commission ahead of time. The enhanced affordability plan will elevate the number of unit houses to closely to over 300. It will be 50% affordable. And the community benefits is part of the CBA, a community benefits agreement that is being developed in close partnership with the community board as well with the board of presidents.
Great. Thank you very much. Let me start with Commissioner Marin.
So thank you for that. I know at one point we heard from both the applicant and the city that they were trying to endeavor to do more than, because this is 291 out of 968 is 30%. They were endeavoring to do more than that on affordable housing. Do you know where those conversations went?
Those conversations are still ongoing, is my understanding. I believe it's pending approval of what the City Council will do and also the CPC to see if they can secure additional funding for the enhanced affordability.
Great. So, but the 30% is, obviously 30% is already a given as part of the formula. But we can anticipate that we may get more affordable units in whatever tiers that they come in.
Correct.
If HPD has the funds. And will someone let us know that, just so that we know? I mean, I just out of curiosity, will somebody say to us, hey, by the way, after the vote, by the way, the city was able to garner more funds and get more affordable units? I think it's something that, it would be good for us to know, just to have in our back pocket.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, but I'm pretty sure we can follow up with the commission.
Yeah, it's not going to be tomorrow, I know that. It'll probably be, in the outer years when they, have the monies. But thank you, Jose, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions? Okay. All right. Thank you for everything. Appreciate it. And this will be up for a vote on Wednesday. Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
next.
We are going to go back to the top of the agenda, certifications. We'll go back in our regular order. We might make some adjustments.
Our normally scheduled programming. Okay.
We'll go back to the certifications. We're going to start with Brooklyn certifications. The second item on our agenda is a certification of site selections, acquisition, and disposition of city-owned properties in Brooklyn Community Districts 5 and 16. Our presenter is Juki Sai.
Good afternoon.
Hello, Juki.
This is an application by New York Police Department, NYPD, New York City Economic Development Corporation, EDC, New York City Department of Citywide Administrative Services, DCAS, and New York City Department of Parks and Recreation, NYC Parks, for a combination acquisition and site selection, a disposition of city-owned property, and 2 site selection actions. The actions would enable the relocation of the NYPD Transit Bureau's 33rd District Building from its current location next to Broadway Junction Station and Callahan Kelly Playground, a couple of blocks south on Van Sinderen Avenue, to a new 35,000 square foot facility. After the relocation of the Transit Police, the actions would facilitate the construction of a 20,000 square foot extension of Callahan Kelly Playground in an area that the Transit Police building currently occupies. Finally, the actions would facilitate the construction of Van Sinderen Plaza, a 5,000 square foot public open space catty corner from Callahan Kelly Playground extension. This project is located at Broadway Junction, Community District 16 and Community District 5, Brooklyn. Broadway Junction is one of the city's busiest transit hubs. This project is part of past planning and ongoing investments in the area by the city and state. The 2016 East New York Neighborhood Plan kicked off a series of city and state-led investments in infrastructure and services across East New York, including in the Broadway Junction area. At Broadway Junction, Parks Department undertook a $22 million renovation of Callahan Kelly Playground, and NYC DOT reconstructed Van Sinderen Avenue, adding a double bus lane and sidewalk extensions to improve bus service and make it safer for pedestrians. In 2019, EDC undertook a study of Broadway Junction that laid out a blueprint for the future of the area. Among the core goals it identified were making all lines at Broadway Junction Station fully accessible, activating the nearby streets and open spaces, and growing the area into a mixed-use district that is a major job center and accessible to residents, local residents. Adjacent to Broadway Junction Station, the first phase of the city agencies revitalizing the economy, CARE, strategy is nearing completion, with a new office building at 2440 Fulton Street, which will be anchored by the New York City Department of Social Services. In 2023, the city and MTA announced over $500 million of major capital investments in and around the Broadway Junction Station. This included $400 million for accessibility upgrades to the Broadway Junction Station complex, including a renovated station, 7 new elevators, and escalator improvements to finally bring full ADA access to the station. It also included over $100 million in capital funding for public realm improvements in the area, including Callahan Kelly Playground Extension and Van Sinderen Plaza. The 3 project sites are located along Van Sinderen Avenue in the immediate vicinity of Broadway Junction Station. The area to the west of the project sites is developed with commercial and office use. Beyond that is a mix of small apartment buildings and 1- and 2-family homes. Directly south of the project site, Project Site 1, is the recently completed 2440 Fulton Street, which I just mentioned. The recently renovated 3.25-acre Callahan Kelly Playground sits directly west of Project Site 1. The area to the east of the project sites includes the East New York Rail Yard and Bus Depot, as well as other utility and industrial uses. The East New York IBZ is to the south of the project sites. Broadway Junction Station has access to the A, C, J, Z, and L trains. There are also stops for the B20, B25, B56, Q20 and Q24 bus lines. The East New York LIRR station is located south on Van Sinderen Avenue. That's off of this slide. And just south of that is the proposed location of the East New York Interborough Express stop. Last month, DCP certified an application by the MTA and NYC Parks for an amendment to the city map. The amendment includes the removal from the city map of 9,600 square feet of a 9,600 square foot portion of Callahan Kelly Playground as parkland. This is the area outlined here in light blue. This area was previously alienated and in use by the MTA as a station entrance and transit PD building. This action was done in order to facilitate the ADA accessibility improvements at Broadway Junction Station and to align the city map with the existing built conditions. The city map amendment also includes the demapping of a portion of Sackman Street and the establishment of new parkland over that area, which is outlined here in orange. Of note, the roadbed of this part of Sackman Street has already been closed and included in the renovation of Callahan Kelly Playground, which was completed in August of 2023. On the right-hand side, you can see a photo of the opening ceremony for this park. Project Site 1 is currently zoned C44L. The other two project sites are zoned C45D. To the west, there's a mix of R6B and R6, as well as M14R7D. To the east, there is a mix of M11, M12, and M14 zoning. The proposed project has three parts tied to broader city-led public realm improvements in the Broadway Junction area. The first is the Callahan Kelly Playground extension, which would entail the creation of 20,000 square feet of public open space outside of the Broadway Junction Station House, where the Transit PD building is currently located. This part of the project requires the relocation of the Transit PD building. The second part of this project is the development of Van Sinderen Plaza, a 5,000 square foot public open space. And the third part is the relocation of NYPD Transit Bureau's 33rd District building from its current location on Project Site 1 to a new building south on Van Sinderen Avenue. These projects will all go through PDC review before construction. Now I'll take you through the three sites. Project Site 1 is the location of the future Callahan Kelly Playground extension. It is part of a larger city-owned block occupied by Callahan Kelly Playground. It is currently partially occupied by NYPD Transit Bureau's 33rd District building, and it is adjacent to the Broadway Junction subway station. Here, you can see a street view of the project site looking east. You can see the Broadway Junction station entrance and the Transit PD building on the left-hand side. Here we look northeast from the intersection of Fulton and Van Sinderen. Here we look north from Fulton Street at Project Site 1. I believe that fence has since been removed. The Callahan Kelly Playground extension is 20,000 square feet of public open space outside of the Broadway Junction station, and here you can see a conceptual rendering of that plaza. Project Site 2 is the location of the future Van Sinderen Plaza. It is part of a larger lot owned by the City of New York and leased to the New York City Transit Authority. It is currently being used as surface parking. Here we look south at Project Site 2 from Fulton Street. Here we look east at Project Site 2 from Van Sinderen Avenue. The proposed Van Sinderen Plaza would be 5,000 square feet of public open space. Site 3 is the location of the future NYPD Transit Bureau 33rd District building. It is located on Van Sinderen Avenue, though the address is 1508 Herkimer Street. It is a privately owned lot which contains a one-story, 20,000 square foot vacant warehouse. Here we look south on Van Sinderen Avenue. The project site is on the right. And here we look east on Van Sinderen Avenue at the project site. The proposed project at Site 3 is a new 4-story, approximately 35,000 square foot, to-be-constructed building for the NYPD Transit Bureau 33rd District to relocate into. The building would include a ground floor community room, offices and workstations, lounge and locker rooms, processing and holding cells, space for officer training, and 10 enclosed parking spots for NYPD fleet vehicles. The building would accommodate a total of approximately 189 NYPD personnel, with no change in staffing levels expected due to the relocation. District 33 would maintain a 24-hour presence on Project Site 3 due to its personnel being assigned into 3 shifts. All tours include both uniformed and civilian members of NYPD. Here you can see an illustrative ground floor plan, and I want to note that it is subject to change. The proposed project would upgrade the NYPD Transit Bureau's 33rd District building, would be an upgrade to the current building, which is currently outdated, dilapidated, and undersized. Here you can see photos of the inside of the existing building. The new building would provide the NYPD with the necessary space to effectively carry out the agency's daily operations in the Broadway Junction area. There are 4 proposed actions in order to facilitate the project. First, a site selection for city facility to facilitate Callahan-Kelly Playground Extension. Second, a site selection for a city facility to facilitate Van Sinderen Plaza. Third, a combination acquisition and site selection by the city to facilitate the future NYPD Transit Bureau's 33rd District building. And fourth, a disposition of city-owned property on Project Site 3, which would facilitate the transfer of the remaining development rights on the zoning lot to the owner of the property to the north so that it can be fully developed. This, in summary, this is an application by NYPD, EDC, DCAS, and NYC Parks for a combination acquisition and site selection, a disposition of city-owned property, and 2 site selection actions. The actions would enable the relocation of NYPD Transit Bureau's 33rd District building to a new nearby 35,000 square foot facility. The relocation would facilitate the construction of Callahan-Kelly Playground Extension, a 20,000 square foot open space on the land that the 33rd District building currently occupies. Finally, the actions would facilitate the construction of Van Sinderen Plaza, a 5,000 square foot public open space catty corner from Callahan-Kelly Playground, and all of this in service of the city's broader goals of improvements in and around the Broadway Junction station. Thank you. I'll take any questions.
Great. Thank you, Juki. Exciting stuff around Broadway Junction, for sure. Let me just take a second to clarify one point, because we did talk about this very park and this very area just a few weeks ago here at the Commission. At that time, we certified the demapping. In fact, maybe you can just pull it up for me, just the park area, so we can just all look at it together. We certified the demapping of Sackman Street, which runs right through the park, and remapped it as parkland. So it is officially part of Callahan-Kelly Park.
Yes.
Number 1, correct?
Correct.
Okay. The second thing that we did was to align the space that I believe is in the blue here.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you do it so I don't make a mess of it, but we tried to align the space covered by the station and station improvements with its needs relative to the park. Why don't you say what that was, and then let's talk about what we're doing here.
Right. So the city map amendment, as I understand it, served a few functions, as you mentioned, Chair. As far as the area in the blue, it needed to be demapped as parkland in order to facilitate the ADA accessibility. But it also essentially aligned many portions of that area with the what is currently built there. So some of that area where the Transit PD station and the station house currently are was alienated as parkland, and essentially what the action did is fully correct the city map to reflect what was there. And now I understand what I just said, and the Sackman Street portion I'll talk about in just 1 second. I understand that for part of this I said, we're going to then build what is essentially what functions like a park in some of this area. And that is true. And it will be operated by NYC Parks. This is just happening after the city map amendment, and there's nothing in the city map amendment that happened that is going to in any way interfere with this plaza being made, A. And then B, if in the future the Parks Department wants to come back in and map that 20,000 square feet as parkland, there's nothing preventing that from happening.
Could, in a different set of legal facts here, could we just have demapped a little less of this blue area so as to leave it as parkland to accommodate for this 20,000 square feet of open public space, which is going to go as a subset of this blue area?
Potentially, yes. I think part of this is just the time constraints on the ADA accessibility and the desire to move that project forward. But also, I think again, with what was existing, matching this city map amendment with the built context. Yes, that could have potentially been done, but I think that the important thing here is that nothing of that city map amendment is going to prevent what is being done, what is planned for this public plaza, A. B, the ADA accessibility improvements are going to get to move forward in an expedient fashion. And C, the opportunity is open if Parks Department wants to come back, or if a city entity wants to come back and map parkland here, I think that is well within the realm of possibility.
So the station gets its improvements within the rough footprint that it's in. 20,000 square feet of open space exists immediately to the south, although demapped as parkland, it exists as open space.
Yep, it's city-owned land.
Not officially parkland.
Not officially parkland.
But city-owned space that will be used and will feel like an expansion of Kelly Park.
Right.
And as you said, if at some later date the city wants to remap as parkland, it can. And then NYPD Transit Bureau moves down the block, and through this action, we site select a 5,000 square foot public open space, functionally like right across the street here. Is that right?
Right.
Okay. All right. I think I got it. Bless you. I think I've got it. Let's see if there are other questions. Okay. All right. Thank you, Juki. Seems like we straightened it all. I think you had it totally straight. You straightened it out for me, though. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are certified on this one. Thank you. All right, let's move on to the next.
Okay. The third item on our agenda is a certification of a zoning map and zoning text amendments in Brooklyn Community District 13. Our presenter is Hanif Yassi.
Chair, for the record, I'm recused on this one.
Commissioner Rampersad is recused.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you, commissioners. Slide. Haven't been in front of the commission for a while, so I forgot I get to control this thing. All right. This is an application by SLG Assets Incorporated for a zoning map amendment from R5 to R7A and R7A C24, and a zoning text amendment to map a mandatory inclusionary housing area to facilitate the construction of a new 8-story mixed-use building with approximately 17,000 square feet, or 5 FAR, including 19 dwelling units, 4 to 6 of which will be permanently income restricted. Project is located at 58 Nixon Court in Southern Brooklyn's Community District 13. Project is located in a flood zone, and the applicant is proposing flood resiliency features that include a design flood elevation above the base flood elevation, with all mechanical systems located above the DFE, as well as dry floodproofing commercial spaces with removable barriers and cellar spaces dedicated only to non-critical uses, like bicycle parking and so on. The site is within the Special Ocean Parkway District, which was adopted in 1977 in response to community concerns about overdevelopment of community facilities and to preserve the residential character of Ocean Parkway. Project is located between the Gravesend and Brighton Beach neighborhoods, and with Coney Island to the north, or to the southeast, and Sheepshead Bay to the Coney Island to the southwest, and Sheepshead Bay to the northeast. It's sandwiched between those four neighborhoods there. Rezoning area includes 5 lots at the intersection of Nixon Court and Shore Parkway between Ocean Parkway and West Street, situated just south of Avenue Z and north of the Belt Parkway, seen to the south there on the slide. The elevated F train serving communities in Coney Island to the south and Gravesend and Kensington to the north stops at Neptune Avenue Station, approximately half a mile west of the project area. The B1, B4, and B36 buses are available just south of the project area at Ocean Parkway and Shore Parkway. These buses serve southern Brooklyn, including linking neighborhoods of Bay Ridge and Coney Island to Sheepshead Bay. Bicycle access is available via Ocean Parkway, a protected bike lane that extends from Kensington to Brighton Beach, one of the longest in the city, I believe. The proposed development site is bounded by Nixon Court at 60 feet to the north, Shore Parkway at around 30 feet to the south, and the very wide 210-foot Ocean Parkway to the east. Rezoning area includes 5 lots, with the development site comprising 4 vacant triangular lots, totaling approximately 3,500 square feet, with no curb cuts and no history of development. The remaining lot across Ocean Parkway is a 12-story co-op building built in the 1960s, currently overbuilt under R5 regulations at 5.03 FAR. That lot would become more compliant under the proposed R7A zoning. The existing zoning is R5, mapped since 1961 and never modified. Surrounding area includes a mix of residential, institutional, and limited commercial uses. Residential apartment buildings of 6 to 12 stories are common, especially between Shell Road and Ocean Parkway. The area also includes major institutions like Coney Island Hospital, 14 stories immediately to the east, and schools like PS 209 and Lincoln High School. 2 Parks Department managed playgrounds, West Playground and Grady Playground, are within walking distance. Getting into some of these development site and project area images, here's the development site facing southeast from Nixon Court. Here's Nixon Court facing east. Here's a sidewalk along the north side of Shore Parkway facing northeast. And the sidewalk along the south side of Nixon Court, also facing east. The applicant proposes an 8-story mixed-use building with 19 residential units, including 4 to 6 income-restricted units under MIH, and around 800 square feet of ground floor retail. The building will rise approximately 85 feet with an additional 10-foot rooftop bulkhead. 6-story portion will step down near the adjacent R5 district. 7 attended off-street parking spaces will be voluntarily provided, accessed via Nixon Court. A rooftop recreation area is also planned. It is visible here in the renderings. The applicant seeks also a zoning map amendment from R5 to R7A, C24 for the development site, and R7A for the adjacent lot across the street. Rezoning would provide a contiguous R7A district fronting Ocean Parkway, bringing the overbuilt lot at 2650 Ocean Parkway into better compliance. R7A permits a maximum FAR of around 5 for buildings including qualifying affordable housing. R7A districts have a maximum base height of 85 feet, a 10 or 15-foot setback on wide or narrow streets respectively, and a maximum height of 115 feet. C24 districts are common overlay districts mapped within residential neighborhoods along streets that serve local retail needs. C24 districts allow a range of local serving commercial retail and service uses such as grocery stores, restaurants, general stores, barber shops, laundromats, and other similar retail and service businesses. When mapped within R7A districts, C24 districts allow commercial uses up to a maximum of 2 FAR, but commercial uses are limited to the first floor in mixed-use buildings. Accessory off-street parking is mandated for 15% of dwelling units and may be waived for 25 or fewer spaces. Income-restricted units in the outer transit zone are exempt from parking requirements. All developments in R70 districts are subject to quality housing regulations. The second action proposed is a zoning text amendment to amend Appendix X to designate the project area as an MIH area with option 1, where 25% of the units must be set aside for income-restricted housing at an average of 60% of area median income, and option 2, where 30% of the units must be set aside for income-restricted housing at an average of 80% of AMI. The applicant plans to pursue MIH option 2. Pursuant to Local Law 78 of 2021, this application requires a racial equity report on housing and opportunity because it would increase the permitted residential floor area by at least 50,000 square feet. The applicant states that the proposal would produce new income-restricted housing units in a location that has low income and is highly accessible to transit and jobs. The median household income for Brooklyn, Brighton Beach, and Coney Island is approximately $41,000 per year. The population of Community District 13 is predominantly white, followed by Asian at 17% and Latino at 16%, with Black residents at 11%. Between 2010 and 2020, the area's Asian population increased by 49%. Hispanic population increased by 2%. The area's Black and white populations decreased by 2% and 6%, respectively. The area experienced a population increase of 4.7% between 2010 and 2020, and new housing production increased by 6.8%. Even so, between 2017 and 2021, an estimated 32% of households were severely rent burdened. It means they spent more than 50% of their income on rent. To conclude, the applicant is seeking a zoning map amendment from R5 to R7A, C24, and R7A, and a zoning text amendment to map the area as an MIH area. Facilitate a new 8-story building with 19 dwelling units, including 4 to 6 permanently income-restricted units and around 800 square feet of ground floor retail. With that, I'll take your questions.
Thank you very much. Going to start with Commissioner Dweck.
Thank you. I like the rendering, and I certainly understand the R7A, that area in that district. I grew up not far from there. My question goes to the C24. My question goes to the C24 overlay. There, to the best of my knowledge, there's no retail in that area. Can you speak to that and why we would map it? I think there's a restriction on Ocean Parkway for retail or for commercial uses, so maybe you could speak to the C24 mapping and how that would affect the neighborhood.
That's correct. The area doesn't have a lot of commercial uses available nearby. We see one small commercial use located at a mid-block just north of the project area and development site, serving a large residential area, including a large hospital with thousands of employees and patients. We felt that commercial use at this corner would not significantly impact the surrounding area in a negative way and was an appropriate use for that site.
My concern is creating a context for future conversion to commercial uses. I mean, Coney Island Avenue is just a stone's throw away from Ocean Parkway, and it's a large commercial corridor with tons of retail and facilities that could serve the people, the population of Coney Island Hospital and their employees. So I would urge the department to rethink the C24 overlay on Ocean Parkway, and especially, in light of what it could open up for future applicants.
Thank you, Commissioner Dweck. Let me just pose a follow-up question to that about the proximity here to the hospital and concern about precedent for a commercial overlay on Ocean Parkway. What else might fall into the category or be an analog to what we're looking at here? Obviously, the department has, looked at an application which has a commercial overlay here, and that is the proposal that's being certified today. But is there anything else that's like it on Ocean Parkway? The existence of the hospital, one might argue, and maybe, reasonable minds could disagree, but that might be a reason to allow for commercial there. In fact, it might enhance the entire experience all around. Is there a way to make a case for that is distinct from the rest of Ocean Parkway if you're concerned about precedential value?
It's a good question. The Ocean Parkway district is long and includes many residential spaces to the north. The area here stands quite close to the terminus of the Special Ocean Parkway district, just north of this highway condition here. It's a very different set of conditions than what we observe in other parts of the Special Ocean Parkway district, where you have, a lot more distance from the Belt Parkway, and from other sites like the large hospital and other things like that. I don't know another use that is a different non-residential use that is too close to this site. Didn't observe anything in the surrounding area like that, except for the one commercial use on the mid-block just to the north.
All right. Well, we will explore this one through the process here. You want to follow up? Commissioner Dweck has a follow-up, and then we'll go to Commissioner Osorio.
Oh, sorry. I'm just going to add that the entire Ocean Parkway malls are mapped state parkland. So, putting a commercial retail store on state, right on the border of state parkland doesn't make too much sense to me from current use.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Osorio?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the presentation. So my question is about the vulnerability of the site to flooding, and so it's clear in your materials in your presentation that, we're expecting the developer to comply with Appendix G as they should. But I'm wondering if there are any additional infrastructure initiatives or anything else that we should know of that could potentially be factored in here. Otherwise, it's a complicated site. But that's the first question. Second question is, I'm really interested in the block adjacent to it. Toward West Street, where you can tell that the flooding recedes. And so I'm wondering if there's anything that we could potentially learn from, why is flooding potentially can flooding be mitigated just as, exactly, to the left. If you look at the map, all of the rest of the block is actually clear from flooding. So there may be there may be opportunities here to think about this as in context and potentially reduce it. Otherwise, I'm having a hard time understanding, again, the public benefit of increasing residential density here, although the land use rationale makes sense to me.
Just so I better understand the point, there are areas right close to this one where there isn't a flood risk.
The rest of the block is pretty much clear.
And so the question is, are there mitigation strategies that could be employed here?
Exactly.
That could create those same conditions?
Exactly. Can potentially the landscaping of the entire block be extend to cover this? Or are there any just infrastructure initiatives that the city may have in place along Ocean or Belt that we can factor in? Yeah.
Not too familiar with anything specific there, but it's certainly an opportunity for us to look at the wider area and explore that specific type of condition that you mentioned. It's something that didn't come to my mind. Take analyzing the block by block. I think it's a valuable piece of insight for us to go back and explore.
Take a look. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, this item is certified. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Look forward to more conversations on this one, and we'll move on to the next.
Thank you.
The fourth item on our agenda is a certification of a zoning map and zoning text amendments in Brooklyn Community District 10. Presenting for the first time to the Commission is Katie Martin.
All right, Katie, welcome.
Hello.
Glad you're here.
Glad to be here. All right. Good afternoon, Chair Garodnick and Commissioners. Oh, I guess I have to wait for my... We'll go back to the front. This is a private application from Geffen Management, LLC, for a zoning map amendment from an R3X zoning district to an R6A district within the Special Bay Ridge District, and a zoning text amendment to Appendix F to facilitate the development of a new 8-story residential development, including over 36,094 square feet of residential space, or 40 dwelling units, 10 of which will be permanently income restricted, and 18 cellar level parking spaces. The project is located at 464 Ovington Avenue between 4th Avenue and 5th Avenue in Bay Ridge, Community District 10 in Southern Brooklyn. It's located in City Council District with Council Member Justin Brannon. This is an aerial view looking north of the project area toward Northern Bay Ridge and Sunset Park. The Brooklyn Army Terminal is northwest of the project area by approximately 1 mile. The BQE is located northeast and east of the project area and eventually filters onto the Verrazano Bridge to Staten Island. Owl's Head Park is located west of the project area near the waterfront. The project area, shown here in blue, has frontage on Ovington Avenue near its intersection with 5th Avenue. There are several public transportation options for bus and subway service near the project area. The R subway line runs along 4th Avenue, and the nearest stop, Bay Ridge Avenue, is approximately a quarter of a mile from the project area. The R provides local connections to Manhattan and Queens, as well as connections to express trains, the D and the N, as well as the LIRR Atlantic Terminal. There are several bus routes which operate in the area, and the NYC Ferry's Sunset Park Brooklyn Terminal stop is about a mile from the project area. The project area is an approximately 36,000 square foot area in the mid-block of Ovington Avenue with 5th Avenue to the east. The project area consists of 7 lots, including 5 partial lots. The project area is developed with residential, commercial, and mixed-use residential and commercial uses today. The development site, shown in yellow, consists of 1 lot that is improved with a vacant 2-family, 2-story residence that was built in 1899. To the west of the project area, indicated in green, are several community facilities, including the Lutheran Elementary School, 2 facilities for the PSIS 30, the Mary White Ovington School, and the Bay Ridge Community Service Center. This is the land use map. You can see there's a mix of low and mid-density residential mixed-use buildings and institutional uses along Ovington Avenue. Ovington Avenue is a 60-foot narrow street with primarily residential and institutional uses, including single-family attached and detached homes, 2 to 6-story residential apartment buildings, multiple schools, and religious institutions. Where Ovington Avenue crosses the northbound and southbound corridors, there's a mix of uses, including retail and commercial buildings mixed with residential. 5th Avenue, just east of the project area, is a commercial corridor stretching from downtown Brooklyn to Southern Bay Ridge. 4th Avenue to the west of the project area has medium to high density residential buildings with a mix of commercial and public facility uses. The block of the project area features 1 to 2 family homes directly north and south of the project area on Ovington Avenue and 72nd Street, 2 to 6-story multifamily buildings, as well as community facilities to the west of the project area. The zoning districts mapped within the surrounding area include R3X, R41, R5B, R6B, and R7B residential districts, and C13 and C23 commercial overlay districts. R3, R4, and R5 are low to mid-density residential districts, while R6 and R7 contextual districts are mid-density residential districts. We are now looking south with the proposed development in yellow and the project area in blue. This aerial shows the density along this block of Ovington Avenue. Directly north of the project area has low-density single or two-family buildings. However, west of the project area near 4th Avenue has higher-density multifamily buildings. You'll see that the FARs in the area are up to 4.04, and the proposed development would facilitate a building of up to 3.9 FAR and 8 stories. You'll see that the building to the right of the proposed development has an FAR of 3.57 and is out of compliance with the current R3X zoning, but it would be brought into compliance with the proposed rezoning to R6A. The project area is located within an R3X district, which was mapped in 2005 through the Bay Ridge rezoning and was previously an R6 district. Here you can see the zoning before the 2005 rezoning on the left and generally what exists now on the right. R6 and R7 family districts were mapped along major neighborhood corridors, while most of the mid-blocks were mapped with R4 and R5 family districts. This area was one of the few mid-block portions mapped within R3 district. The project area is also located within the Special Bay Ridge District, which maintains the neighborhood's existing scale and limits the maximum permitted FAR and the height of community facilities in contextual zoning districts. This shows the proposed development site shown in yellow head-on, as well as part of the project area shown in blue. Here you can see the proposed development site is improved with a 2-story, 2-family residential building, which is currently vacant. To the west is a 5-story multifamily residential building, and to the east is a 3-story mixed-use residential and commercial building. You can see the proposed development site is underbuilt. This view is from the corner of 5th Avenue and Ovington Avenue, looking west toward the project area. You can see the small white residential building indicated here in yellow, which is currently on the proposed development site. 5th Avenue is characterized by a mix of commercial and residential uses. Here we're looking east toward 5th Avenue in the distance. The project area is on the right, and the 5-story building on the right is part of the project area, and the proposed development site is located just to the east. Along the left side, there are a mix of low to mid-density residential buildings. Here we're looking east toward 5th again, from the western portion of the block. As you can see here, the block has some high-density residential and community facility uses. The proposed actions would facilitate the development of an 8-story residential building, totaling 36,094 square feet. The proposed development will include 40 dwelling units, of which 10 would be permanently income restricted. Parking would be provided in a cellar level. The applicant is currently proposing 18 accessory parking spaces, 10 spaces more than are required by zoning. To facilitate this project, the applicant seeks 2 proposed actions, a zoning map amendment and a zoning text amendment to Appendix F. The zoning map amendment seeks to change the existing R3X district along Ovington Avenue to an R6A district. The project area is part of the Special Bay Ridge District. An R6A district is a contextual district that allows a maximum residential FAR of 3.9 with MIH and an FAR of 3 for community facility uses. The applicant also proposes a zoning text amendment to Appendix F to map MIH coterminous with the project area, creating permanently income restricted housing via MIH options 1 and 2. This application requires a racial equity report on housing and opportunity. The proposed development would provide new housing units in a neighborhood that has experienced little housing production. The area median household income for the project area is $79,766, which is higher than the median income for Brooklyn and New York City. The applicant proposes to provide MIH units that meet 40%, 60%, and 80% AMI income band limits. In Figure 1, we can see that the population of the Bay Ridge and Dyker Heights NTA is predominantly white and Asian, with the percentage of white residents at 52%, which exceeds both the borough at 35% and city at 31%. The Asian population at 26% is higher than borough and citywide percentages. Figure 2 shows the percent change in race and ethnicity from 2010 to 2020. The largest growth was seen in the Asian population, which has experienced a growth of 45% compared to an increase of 43% borough-wide and 34% citywide. The Black, non-Hispanic, and Hispanic populations have also seen population increases in comparison with borough and citywide percentages. The white population decreased 10% in this NTA compared to an increase of 8% borough-wide and no change citywide. Figure 14 shows the percent change in housing supply and population from 2010 to 2023. During these years, housing units in the area increased by 1%, while the population increased by 9%, showing that housing unit production has not kept pace with population growth. In summary, this is a private application for a zoning map amendment from an R3X district within the Special Bay Ridge District to an R6A district, and a zoning text amendment to Appendix F to facilitate the development of a new 8-story residential building with approximately 40 dwelling units, including 10 units of income-restricted housing. Thank you for your time, and I can answer any questions.
Great, bravo, congratulations. Thank you. I just have one, and then I'm going to go to Commissioner, sorry, I just wanted to make sure. I thought I saw a hand from you. Okay, so this block looks like it's got its own special category in zoning in relation to everything else. So back in 2005, everything in the area was an R6. Then it was changed in 2005, and it looks like we have a smattering of R5s, R5Bs, R6Bs, and then this R3X.
Right.
You know, the R6A that's being proposed here does not feel out of whack in the existing zoning map. But what was the history there for this being an R3X in contrast to everything else around it?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So as you can see on the left, before the Bay Ridge rezoning, we had R6 pretty much everywhere. And we're looking mostly on this like eastern side because the western side is a little bit different context here. And the Bay Ridge rezoning in 2005, you know, mapped R7B, R6B on our major corridors, and then most of our mid-blocks were R4, R family districts. So this was one of the only mid-blocks that was downzoned to an R3. And I think pretty much the reason here was that they were focused on preservation and looking at the context of the area. And I do, you know, hear what you're saying. I don't think that the R6A is necessarily out of context at this point, but that's, you know.
Okay, so it was an effort to match what was there at the time, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Okay, all right, thank you. Let me go to Commissioner Osorio.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your presentation. Two quick questions. One is, do you have, and if it's in the package, I'll look for it, but do we have a breakdown of the unit sizes?
I don't have it. I don't think I have it on the slides. It should be in the RER, which is included in the briefing package.
Okay, I'll look for it there.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have it on me.
No, thank you. Perfect. And then the second question is, has there been any conversations about the energy efficiency standards that will be built here, or can you tell us anything about the sustainability measures that have been discussed so far?
I don't have any, at the moment, I don't know an answer to that, but I'm happy to round back with the applicant and then see if we can have that answered for you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And yeah, okay, I'll look for the information, but if it's not there, if you can share anything with us on that regard, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'm happy to follow up.
Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Cerullo?
So this is less of a question than a comment, but I guess somewhere there's a question in here. And it's really maybe perhaps philosophical or conceptual, and this has come up in different projects, and it's sort of the narrative of housing production has not kept pace with the population growth concept. And I wonder how we apply that in a completely built neighborhood for 80 years. Is it the same? When this is not a community with vacant land or dilapidated, abandoned buildings. This is a completely built neighborhood where the only way to produce housing is to do what's happening here, which is there's a purchase of a home stuck between two larger or more dense buildings, and then build something in its place. So I guess we've heard that, we hear this a lot about what neighborhoods have had all the housing built in them. They tended to be neighborhoods I say we, the city and the planning commission and the department has focused applicants in neighborhood rezoning. So we're pointing people into areas where there's availability and need, both. But in this case, in a neighborhood like this, I don't know what that data point really means when we would be suggesting we should be tearing down parts of the neighborhood to then build bigger so that we could accommodate the population that is outpacing the development. And because there's no place to develop unless somebody's knocking down a building in a neighborhood like this. And I get stuck on that because I don't know that that's a fair assessment or a fair expectation. It's disruptive, even though somebody has the right to come in, an applicant has the right to come in and do it. But I'm not sure how the data point really relates to many of our built communities to then say, because it sounds like they're not doing something right. And it sounds like somehow they are fighting development in their neighborhood when their grandmothers and great-grandmothers and now they're living in their houses and their buildings. So it's really just a thought. But anyway, any comments you have on that, I welcome. But it was just less of a question than a sort of point of view.
Yeah, I appreciate the comment. I think that's, it's helpful perspective, especially as we discuss like these lower density neighborhoods like Bay Ridge, because I agree, it is very well established. I don't think we are advocating for tear downs to happen, right? No. But I do believe that, something that we have seen across the city is that there are certain neighborhoods which have sort of this, they are creating the most housing. They are expected to build dense because people want to live there. I do think that Bay Ridge is a very desirable neighborhood. A lot of people want to live there. There's a lot of growth. There are a lot of people who have, large families down in the area. So yeah, I think that, as there are situations in which, small apartment buildings can be built like this one, it is 40 units. It's not something you would necessarily see in like Williamsburg or something like that. I think that that's the opportunity in a neighborhood like Bay Ridge to see that growth in those like small incremental ways. But I'll let Alex also speak to that too.
Sure, thank you. And it's a great question, and I think we get this a lot, even when we're reviewing the RERs, which are kind of still relatively new in our process. And we always want to make assumptions about the data that we're seeing, like is how the relationship is to new housing construction, how does that relate to the demographic changes we're seeing? And you try and find the patterns as planners, as good, curious folks. And so what we're trying to do with the RER and what the mandate was is just to provide the information that we're seeing. I think it is hard for us to provide a one-for-one kind of connection between some of the data here, which is also for a very large geography, and a takeaway. I think we highlight some of the big trends. So like we're using this slide, like there's a pretty big delta between the two. And so calling that out,
But I don't think we can say like one for one is like a relationship to the data point to some of the demographic information or the population trend. It's just putting out the information that we have. So it's a tool to use as part of a decision-making process.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. We always say we appreciate everybody's comment, but I do appreciate that, and I understand that. I just feel at some point where the narrative we're creating somehow doesn't just link to data. It's obviously factually correct. So that's not there's no challenge in the factually correct data point. But there is a huge reason why that exists, and it isn't what neighborhoods tend to be attacked on. This is a long-standing built community where the only way to fix it is to do tear downs, because there is no, or take a park, which will never happen. But what I mean is there's no space to grow unless you tear down and grow up. And many of our neighborhoods are like that in the diversity of their built character, whether it's a little house or a medium-sized multiple dwelling, or it's a one-family community that the only way to add to it involves demolition and rebuild in a different way. And I just feel like I wish we had a better way to describe the differences in our neighborhoods when we're looking at new development in them versus making it sound like basically finally they're going to add housing to this neighborhood that hasn't kept up with the population, as if they're not doing their part, because the preservation of some of the character of our neighborhoods is still important in this city. It isn't just about finding new places to destroy an old neighborhood and build bigger. Private sector has the right to do that. The city has the right to do that too. But I just feel like we should be packaging this differently. But anyway, I appreciate the ability to just have those thoughts. Thank you.
We appreciate your ability to have those thoughts too, Commissioner. Commissioner Benjamin?
Yeah, I'd just like to be
appreciate it.
associated with the comments of Commissioner Cerullo. I think that we have to look at both sides of the question when we are encouraging new development or when we're suggesting that there should be new development somewhere, even if we don't identify the spaces where we think that's going to happen or should happen. And I think we should be looking at that in addition in the RER. Are there buildable spaces so that the expectation that we're creating that somehow this amount of housing should be occurring is shown to be either a real expectation or that while they're not keeping pace and that has led to increases in the rental market and the price of housing, currently there aren't empty lots and vacant buildings that are going unused. I think it's important to add that, as Fred said.
Okay. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you, Katie. This item is certified. And in the interest of time and schedules here, we're going to hold off on the remaining items for today. Madam Secretary, tell us how best for us to effectuate that in an orderly way for Wednesday and the rest of the week, and then we will adjourn and pick this up on Wednesday morning. Go ahead.
We're going to post a special review session agenda on our website tomorrow. We will circulate that with the commission, and we will continue items number 5, 6, 7, 8, and 14, actually, on the special review session agenda that will be posted on the website.
Great. So we'll have a special review session on Wednesday and a public meeting on Wednesday. We'll look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you for your time, and we are adjourned.
Thank you.
The time is 4:24 p.m.